listening to the
Hey, MFM. See you on the lift.
Back attack, dude.
Bon voyage!
Hey, yo, homies, good.
Slide down them big hills, you know what I mean, on the big, nice burgundy snowboard.
All right, welcome to The Bomb Hole, which is presented by Run Through a Wall Smelling Salts. Also brought to you by Woodward, Bubs Naturals, and Nightaker. Today, co-hosting in this beautiful booth, we got Mr. Scott Blum. What's happening, Blum?
Dude, I'm hyped to be here. Honored to be here with you two.
Love it.
Love the new studio.
Couple Mammoth Lokes in studio today. And we got Silk D on production. Another day for Silk. How we feeling? What's happening?
Feeling great. Another day. Happy to be here.
Haircut looks good as always. What are we rocking? Tie-dye shirt? What is that thing?
I don't know exactly. I guess it is tie-dyed a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's from.
Looking fresh. Looking fresh.
Thank you.
And the man of the hour, we got Billy Anderson in studio. What's happening, Billy?
How's it going? Thanks for having me.
So happy that you're here. And for our listeners that don't know who Billy is, Billy has been on both sides of the industry as a ripping pro rider in the 90s, pro for Morrow, Volcom, then moved on to be an industry juggernaut, serving as marketing manager over at Volcom for many, many years, then went on to run marketing over at Burton. He's heavily dedicated to the community with the JLA Bank Slalom, the Volcom Brothers skate park in memory of his brother Jeff. Billy has done it all in snowboarding, traveled the world, built careers. He's an absolute fucking destroyer on a snowboard. He cares. He's a great human. He's got a great story. So let's get into it, Billy. Grew up in Mammoth, right?
Yeah, born and raised. My parents were essentially ski bums. Small town living. I think Mammoth was a really cool spot at that time. Dave McCoy, very community driven. Like you were there to ski, which I think was awesome. You know, people, ski patrols, lifties, ski instructors. That's what you were there for. So grew up there skiing, you know, like very small town living. You don't see much from the outside world.
This late 80s we're talking?
Yeah. But I mean, early, like started skiing in the 80s. Like you're on skis at 2-3 years old, race team, all of that. Humble beginnings, you know, like all of our Christmas presents were new skis and new outerwear. And that was your time to tap into it. I mean, like as we just jump in, like ski racing was it. And I was really small. Like I wasn't even 5 feet tall by the time I was 16. So ski racing was difficult because I was fast. I knew how to turn, but I just didn't have the size. And I like one of the first stories is I was like a young kid on the ski team, and I won most improved skier for the year. And I was fucking devastated. Like most improved, like did I suck before? Like as I was kind of preparing for this, I'm like thinking about my whole path, and it's just like a little bit of a chip on your shoulder, you know? There were like the junior championships, like the speed events were where my best was, and it was in Mammoth, the springtime, like a downhill. And when it was like cold and icy in the morning, I skied really well, and in the training run, I won. So I'm like, fuck, I'm in this. Like, I can do this. Like, tiny, skinny little dude in a speed suit. You know, you see those kids on the hill. That was me. And it gets to the race, and my race is at 1:30 in the afternoon, and it's slush, and I'm, like, literally tucking, feeling like I'm going uphill, just going like, this sucks. Like, how do I ever compete, you know? So there was always, like, a bit of a struggle where the bigger kids were just ripping. I mean, all my closest friends, but it's tough when it's competitive and you feel like that you're not competing because of your size.
So yeah, what led to switching to one plank instead of two?
So I mean, at that time it's like insanely fortunate in Mammoth because June Mountain had the OP Pro. So when I think I was probably 10, Jeff was 8. And OP Pro is coming to town. So it's like, we wanted to go check it out. Hey, it's new. It's right there. My mom takes us to the first one, and everyone's accessible. And you know that these are literally the best snowboarders in the world. And Craig Kelly's there. and it's an elimination format, and he's like doing his runs. He's like clicking off heats, and we're literally running down after every run and high-fiving Craig Kelly. And he's just like giving you the attention, and he's psyching, and then we'd run up and he'd do it again. And it just became so obtainable, and it was relatable, where it was like, dude, these are the best people in the world, and they're giving me and my little brother the time of day. So, you know, that was like rental boards at June, trying to figure it out.
When did you get your first snowboard?
So this was just like still rental. So it was probably the next year. So that was it. We were kind of tapping into it. It was really cool. And then that spring they had snowboarding at Mammoth. So it was just like, I mean, that setup was insane. So I had like a Kick 145 out there by myself trying to do it. And I was wearing like felt Sorels.
At the time that it's popping off at June, were you not allowed to snowboard at Mammoth?
No. No snowboarding at Mammoth. I remember being on the ski team and seeing two dudes that actually poached the lift and were riding down Stump Alley and ski patrol chasing them. Like, there's no snowboarding here.
Damn, I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah. So there was snowboarding at June, not at Mammoth. And then that spring, they did a little test run. And I had the Kick 145 that I rented, and the boots were terrible. So I went into my ski team locker and put my ski boots on and put them in the soft bindings. And I'm like, all right, this is a little bit better, a little bit of control. And then that next season, Storm Riders Snowboard Shop opened up in Mammoth. And I mean, like, we weren't even really snowboarding. We like barely learned how to turn, didn't have any of our own equipment. And my dad worked maintenance at the ski area, so he was building out the shop. And we used that as an excuse to like sneak in there and poke our head in. And we literally went there every single day after school for the next 6 years, something like, I mean, it was insane. Ronnie and Denise McCoy were so welcoming. I mean, like all the kids, like my best friends, Mikey Bierman, Ryan Cockcroft, we just all met at the snowboard shop. It was out of school, on your BMX bike, reading magazines, watching videos, like slow seasons, like skate ramps dropping in off like the counter, you know, with like little launch ramps and stuff like that. So, I mean, that's where, I mean, it's just that theme of culture that, I mean, I kind of want to stick to through this whole thing, is that seeing what was happening at June Mountain was like totally accessible, totally fun. Get to the snowboard shop. They open you like open arms, ready to go as kids, relentlessly every day after school. They had to know, I mean, they knew we were coming. So that was like really exciting to feel a part of something where the ski team was just very strict. It's like all about winning. It's racing. It's just a different culture. And when you're not winning, it's not super awesome. You're just kind of grinding through it.
Damn, I'm curious, like Mammoth is such a long winter. I mean, you touched on it, but like you guys are both, you know, for the listeners, Blum is a basically year-round Mammoth resident as well. Like what do you do in the summer in Mammoth? You know, mountain bike or?
I mean, there are a few mini ramps.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what led to golf the first time around, because the mountain bikes weren't any good.
Yep.
Definitely some BMX. We had like a sick kind of rhythm section behind Storm Riders. So there was like BMX jumps, couple ramps. Dustin Del Giudice had a sick mini ramp at his house. Yeah, those were good ones.
And then Dave McCoy opened the moto track. Weren't you guys just riding out there from your house and stuff back in the day?
Yeah, so I mean, like that's a little bit like
Later
kind of my late teens is when that kind of really kicked in. But yeah, well, I mean, Ronnie McCoy was a big moto guy. So he had a border cross motocross series in the spring, and you know, everyone had dirt bikes. Yeah, and the track at Mammoth was accessible. I was telling you a little bit earlier that the early season or the spring, like 2 inches of snow at Mammoth Moto Track is essentially the most insane thing ever. And I mean, they'll cut it after the races, so it stays, you know, it never really got as beat up as like a race weekend. Yeah. And 2 inches. I remember David Barrett, who was a kind of legend in Mammoth. His dad was a famous race car rider, probably one of the most talented guys I'd ever met. And he'd just like pass you and he just pointed his fender. and just like you stay on it. And I mean, he's just like cruising and you're just hanging off the back of the bike, just pinned, just like, this is insane. And, you know, then Mammoth Motocross came. My stepdad was the director of the race for a long time there. So he got me introduced when Roger DeCoster was the team manager at Suzuki. So I got a Suzuki. And then a few years later, I was like committed to it. And he called the guys at FMF. They had a factory team. And they're like, oh, my stepson, he's really into racing. And they're like, we got him. We'll bring like a full works supercross bike because we're building all the outdoor bikes. We'll build him the suspension and he can ride one of the race bikes. Mechanic and everything. So it's like I get out there, first practice, just like hanging off it. Oh my God, this is the sickest bike I've ever ridden, you know, like this is insane. And I pull into the pits and it's like, you don't even put it on the stand. Like there's someone to pick up the bike, put it on the stand for you.
Full
like
factory
Billy.
Factory Billy. And he's like, how is it? And I'm like, dude, it's insane. Like and he's like, oh, we haven't even gotten this thing going yet. So he would watch me every practice and just tweak it, tune it until it was it. I think I finished 11th. I didn't qualify out of the first moto, whole shot at the second moto. I don't know if there's a better feeling going up that hill. Just screaming. You just hope you're in the right gear because you can't hear shit. And just like.
That's so cool. And for the listeners too that don't know, it's like a world-class motocross track too. It's not just like, it's one of the best in the country.
I think it's the longest running race in the U.S.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
World-class mountain, world-class moto. I just think the whole town really caters to like outdoor lifestyle. So bringing back to what you said, what do we do in the summer? You're outside on the mountain all winter, and then you're pretty much out in the woods, whether it's a BMX bike, golfing, moto, hiking. I don't know. There's lakes and trails everywhere. It's huge outdoor lifestyle.
Yeah, swimming, cliff jumping, all that stuff.
So I'm curious. You're enamored with snowboarding. Where do we go from there?
Well, I mean, so it goes really quick, right? So it's like Mammoth's a huge mountain. We're at the premier shop. Everyone starts coming to town. You know, it's like if they're coming to Storm Riders. I mean, Marco Hendrickson, Dusty's dad.
Shout out to Marco. Beep,
yeah.
beep, beep.
So Marco was like essentially the first person to sponsor me. And I mean, I think it's crazy to like look now that like Marco's in Mammoth, Dusty's like on top of the world of just how tapped in he was. I mean, Marco's on the very first Volcom poster. I mean, just like his history in snowboarding was really insane. So, I mean, like my brother and I are kind of one of the first generations of groms.
Yep.
You know, it was like the first like small boards, like Kemper Kid, Burton Free 3, like little tiny boards where that was coming. Ronnie was riding Kemper. So like I bought a Kemper Kid. And then, I mean, it wasn't much longer than that like Andy Hetzel shows up to town. And you're just like, Andy Hetzel's here, you know? And we're all kitted out. So we're like riding with those guys. And so I chose the Kemper out. And then Tom Sims shows up, you know? And my brother meets Tom Sims. I mean, Tom like hit up brother, like when we, like the first year we were snowboarding, he's like, dude, you're insane. Like we want to put you on the team. And it was one of those things where we always kind of laughed because Jeff just sat around and waited for Tom Sims to call and he never fucking called him. You know, which is heartbreaking when you're 9 years old.
Absolutely.
But, you know, I mean, Ronnie opened up so many doors for us because that was Kemper came in. I mean, I think I've only bought one snowboard. You know, it's like the second snowboard was free.
Damn.
You know, at like 11 years old. And you don't even know what sponsorship is. It's not really a thing. You've never seen someone before you do it. So, you know, you get very spoiled, entitled. Like, I think that was one of the tough parts is like, we had great snow. You know, it's like the industry, everyone was coming through, OP Pro, everything. So it was just always happening, you know? And so I got on Kemper and this guy, Kirk Zach, it was crazy. I called him every week. I mean, it was like Wednesday, religiously called him, told him what I was doing, and he answered every time. So I think that was like an instant connection to someone at the company that was making decisions. So, when it gets later in your career, you're comfortable with doing it because you had one or two people that actually listened to you. They never made you feel intimidated. So that whole scene at a really young age, and then OP Pro like kind of keeps coming, right? And then it's like Sione, Steve Graham, Hetzel's like they're winning it when you're just, oh, this is crazy. And they were just so cool. I got on the lift with Sione once, and my brother had like these big combi gloves with like his name on them so he doesn't lose them, right? Or if he does, they can find out who he is. And Sione's like, hey, what's up, Jeff? And I'm like, how does he know who we are? I'm like, oh, no, that's like my brother. And I'm like, oh, it's because it's written on my fucking arm. But it's like those guys were insane. Like you knew who they were. They were in the magazine and they're hopping on the lift with you. It wasn't like, hey, can I get an autograph? Can I ride the lift with you? It was just like, let's hop on the lift. So that was cool. I think at the same time, OP Pro, I saw in the same year, Rob Morrow carve a snowboard, like rail to rail, like laying trenches. And I'm like, what is that? Like there were no shaped skis. Like skiers were definitely not doing that. And then I saw Hetzel do it and I'm like, I got to learn how to turn. So I think that there was a lot going on where we just had access to everyone. And then when we were still so young and my parents were so supportive that our house was just open. We couldn't go to the bar. We're not going drinking. So my mom invited everyone to dinner. We have that big dining room table. You've sat at it. And there was a time like in the early 90s where everyone had been to dinner at our house. Terrier, Daniel, Steve Graham, Jamie Lynn, like they were all just coming through and everyone's burnt on the road, home cooked meal. People are just like jumping at it any chance that they could get. And we'd have our neighbors that were a little bit older come over and we're sitting at the table and she's like, you can't wear a hat at the dinner table. And Steve Graham takes off his hat and it's just like blue and purple. And she's just like, oh my God, put it back on, And everyone's just laughing and chuckling. And then, the next time around, it's like Daniel Frank. And he's learning English. So when he would say an or a yeah, or I'll probably say like 10,000 times today, he just says fuck.
Yeah.
And that's at a time where like it wasn't, you just weren't cussing. So it's like we're little kids and you got this weird Norwegian dude that's just saying fuck literally every other word as he's like translating to himself what it was. So, through that same time, Wooly and Tucker had started Volcom. So the story of them in the Trooper selling hats and T-shirts out of the back of their car, they came to Storm Riders. And it was just like, hey, here's our new brand, cheese hats with patches and, really excited. And I think it was like the next year after that, they sponsored my brother. Mm-hmm. And it was all through the shop. It was just, there weren't those like premier locations. They were few and far between. And
all starts at the local shop.
Yeah. And it was just, insane to really think about when you see it now, things have evolved and, special time.
Yeah, Jamie, I spoke with him yesterday, and he was telling a story about how he couldn't remember if it was you or your brother, but at one point they had rented a U-Haul van because they were too young to rent a car. And I don't know, maybe do you want to tell this story?
Well, I think it was awesome. So it was my brother.
Okay. Yep.
And they were going to Big Bear. And my mom was willing to like send them off like together. And then my mom got like all panicked. So she was like following him to Bishop just to see how it would go. But they had it like rigged up because everyone was riding in the back of the U-Haul. They put like a couch back there, but they were essentially giving themselves carbon monoxide because it was all shut up. This is what he was telling you. Yep. So they like rig like surf leashes and everything to build in ventilation. And they jammed a Big Bear.
Yeah. And your mom, unbeknownst to them, was following to make sure that they were okay.
Yeah, because if they got to Bishop and it wasn't okay, she probably would have driven them to Big Bear.
Yeah. Pretty amazing. And Jamie also mentioned that they cracked the back of the U-Haul open, which created a vacuum, which sucked all the exhaust into the back of the U-Haul, causing exhaust poisoning, which is incredible that they're all still, that worked out. But yeah, going on with that, I'm curious of when the first time you met Jamie is.
So it was at a time where when you got at June Mountain, there was only one way in, and it would close for avalanche control. So when you got stuck in there, it was amazing because you essentially got all of June Mountain the face by yourself. So Dustin and I are staying the night in June. We got snowed in. We got the road closure. And I call my brother to rub it in that we're gonna have June tomorrow. The road's closed. We're psyched. And he's like, oh yeah, really? He's like, Jamie Lynn's coming tomorrow. And I'm like, what are you talking about? There's no way, I'm stuck in June. And I still feel bad about it today because I'm like, Dustin, you got to drive me back, dude. Jamie's coming. I'm going to totally ditch you today. And he's like, for sure. I got you. Let's drive back. And I'm terrible with the years, but that was it. And it was super fun to ride with Jamie and Sione, because we had our own style of riding at Mammoth. It was just so big, and kind of coming off ski racing, everything was fast. We just liked to haul ass. So just some of Jamie's stories were it was just insane. We'd get to you guys and it was top to bottom as fast as you could every time. All the little snake runs, Twilight Zone and things like that. The place was the back of our hand. So I think that it was fun for those guys to chase us around for sure.
What was is that big cliff called Hangman's off the top of the...
Yeah.
Yeah, so he told me that one of his earliest memories was following you, hauling ass into Hangman's, no speed check, no look, flying off of it. And he's like, holy shit, who the hell is this kid?
Yeah, I don't know if it was that radical. It's but yeah, it's just a narrow hourglass chute. And of course, you're young. Your heroes are there, so you're definitely pushing it. But MJB's next to it. We got to ride that with Terrier on his, season. And a lot of good times.
I love this era thinking back on the gear. Walk us through particularly take a powder day up at Mammoth. What are we wearing? What kind of technical apparel are we wearing up there?
It was just the most god-awful day glow stuff you could imagine. There's a photo floating around of Jeff and I from OP Pro, when we were actually still there hanging out, and I had a pink and baby blue outfit on, and my brother had some green shit with twiggly, just horrible ski wear because we were kids, but wanted something bright. And then the Bula hats, long elf hats that went to the ground. And Bud Fawcett snapped a photo of it, and you're just oh my God, that was our scene, And then it was just, I always joke that it was like more water absorbent than waterproof.
And then at what point did it switch to just like baggy ass jeans and a cotton hoodie?
I mean, just like the Volcom stuff. Like as soon as that, the butterball pant and that stuff, it was just like jeans all the time. I mean, I still rode for Quicksilver for a long time. I remember, I mean, like I said, I wasn't even 5 feet tall. And when I got my first pair of 36 jeans, I was like, this is the shit, you know? And it's like, as long as it went over your boot, like that was kind of the test, you know? Anything short of the boot was weak, so.
Legendary. All right, people, we're going to interrupt this program for a brief second to give you guys a couple bomb hole updates. Now, first, we are doing a back to school sale till I don't know when, but the promo code is back to school with the number 2. You'll save 15% off your order. We got some brand new hats in, good profiles. I like these hats. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. We kind of frigged up a couple hats. These ones are dialed in, great fit. So check those out, bombhole.com. You can also check them out at Milo Sport. They just started carrying our hats. If you're here in Salt Lake, you want to check out a great shop, check out Milo Sport. Also, if you're listening to the podcast and you're not subscribed and you're not following us, what are you doing? Just hit the button. That way you won't miss any episodes. And it helps us out a lot. And that way, you don't have to go searching for the bomb hole every time we drop a new episode. It just pops up on your feed. So whether you're listening on Spotify or you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe and support your local snowboard podcast, The Bomb Hole. And I will stop talking because this is probably getting annoying. Let's get back to the show. So I'm curious, you rode for Morrow for many years. How did that come to be where you got a spot on the team?
We were at Hood for the summer with Dave Downing, who was a huge inspiration, took really good care of Jeff and I in the younger years with like guidance and a pretty radical scene. It was always like a beacon of normal, good dudes. So we had spent the summer at Hood, and it actually looked like I was going to ride for Burton and Jeff was going to ride for Morrow. And we kind of left there. I was still riding for Kemper, but we went to Hood for the summer, tested some things, saw some different options. And it was the end of August and, 16 years old, sleeping in, and the phone rings and I'm like, do I answer it? Do I not answer it? And, I'll jump out of bed and answer it. And it was Mickey Keller at Morrow. And she's like, we want you to ride for Morrow. There's a trip going to Chile in 10 days. Like, do you want to ride for us?
Holy shit.
Yeah. And it was like at the point where it was like, I knew I was going to make a change. And it just like really put the hammer down on it where, all right, I'm going to make this decision, like going to Chile, world travel. It was like one of those things like, am I ever going to travel again? Like really weighing it like this is the trip of a lifetime. I got to jump at it.
How old were you at this point?
16.
16.
And 16, so it was like, made the decision, and, I was like calling the guys at Kemper, going, this is what's happening. Can I travel? Am I going to travel? And they're like, hey, we just don't know what's going to happen. So I'm like crying on the phone, telling this guy that's been there for me for a long time, like, hey, I'm going to leave Kemper and go ride for Morrow and go on this trip to Chile. So it's like a mad dash. Like, all right, I'm going to Chile, 16, no cell phone. They're telling my mom everything's set up. And my mom drops me off at the airport in Mammoth. I fly Alpha Air to LA, get on a flight to San Diego, or get to Santiago. Get down there, nothing is set up. It's Richie Fowler, Jay Liska. I don't know if you know who those guys are, but they're from Alaska, like wild men. Like,
Yep.
And Matt Goodwill, and then Noah Brandon. So it's like you had three of the gnarliest boozing party dudes, and then like one of the most clean cut guys. And we walk out, and they have like a 4-door 2-wheel drive car. And they're just duct taping the board bags to the top. And it's just like, dude, there's no way we're all going to fit in this thing. The guy that like owns the rental car agency is just like, whoa, that's my car. Like, this isn't happening. Mark Gallup was the photographer on this shoot. So we finally get it all situated, get a van, drive all the way up to Valle, Nevada. Have you been up there?
Yep.
All the switchbacks.
Gnarly road. Get there at midnight. Go into the hotel, like, hey, we need rooms. They're like, place is sold out. Like, there's nothing up here at all. And I mean, like, I haven't like left the country, 16 years old. And the Alaska guys like brought sleeping bags, bivvies. They're like, they don't give a shit. And they're like, well, we're just going to party tonight. So they go to the club, and I'm just like, all right, I got to get some sleep. So I'm in this van at 11,000 feet. I got my legs tucked into one arm of a jacket. I got my other jacket on, and I'm just sleeping in the car, trying to deal with it. They're all partying. Gallup comes back in the middle of the night, doesn't know where I'm sleeping. He was skiing at that time, throws his boot bag like on my head. I'm just like, this is insane. And, ended up waking up at like 4 a.m, sleeping in the lobby, and then it just like kicked off. We started shooting. It happened. That's where I got my checkout. Was like a cab 3 on a cornice off of the back of Valle, Nevada. And we ended up going to Termas de Chillon, and it was on like going to those places. We just got so lucky. It seemed like when you were going on those kind of trips, it was just always good. So, survived that one and came back, and then that's when it really took off. There was like
when we were at Vine Novato too, like Jana Mayan showed up and TR, they were all filming the fall line stuff. So there was a big group. And that's at the time where Jan and I became really close when we were on Morrow. It was actually pretty cool because we made a pact where we wouldn't, like, after that, we wouldn't go on a trip without each other. It was just like, if they want us to go, we got to go together.
Damn.
Sick. So where did you go from there with your career?
I mean, like at that point, I mean, Morrow was awesome. I think that I knew, I mean, even like growing up with my brother, he was always way better at the tricks or like technical grabs or anything. He just had that. And mine was always like speed and trying to go bigger than everyone. And that put me in a pretty good spot at Morrow because, you know, Todd had certain things on lock and Lepore was young and doing his thing and Dirksen had his thing. I mean, I loved riding with Josh. I think just like being good snowboarders. We had a lot of respect for each other. And that, you know, from there, it kind of went to Mount Baker for the first time. I think it was probably that same year. I was 16. And I mean, that, like, not riding the pillow class wasn't even an option, like, straight to it. And I got really into the bank slalom stuff, was, like, super committed to that. I think it goes back to the culture and the scene, is that scene at Mount Baker was so gritty and so cool and so communal. And, I mean, like, Jamie had been in an accident, and he was just trying to get back to snowboarding, and how everyone lifted him up at a bank slalom. And, you know, seeing Terrier's dominance at the bank slalom was insane. Like, when he qualified switch, I mean, that was a key point for me, too. Like, I went and checked the scoreboard to make sure that, like, I beat him. Like, as long as he didn't beat me switch, I'm still in the game, you know, because there weren't that many people that beat him that time, so.
Were you competing a bit or just free riding, shooting photos, film trips?
I mean, everyone did everything. Like, all this went to all the opens, and, you know, I was never really competing to win, but competing because that's what everyone was doing. And yet Trevor would be there shooting photos. So there was a lot of good times.
If you weren't competing to win, you were...
Yeah, it just like that's where everyone was. Like, everyone went, and you were still shooting the pipes and all the snake sessions. Everyone was a welcome, you know?
All the events really built the community between the bank slaloms, even like the slope styles, free ride events. That was like the place to be.
Yeah, and I think there was a time where everyone did everything and everyone was a part of everything, and that was really cool. So like Japan became a big one. The Grand Prix started coming. I mean, like, I was going to Olympic qualifiers, like, not really being an Olympian, right? This is a good story. This is a fun one. So we go to Maine for the Grand Prix, and my board bag doesn't show up. So we're kind of waiting, and I'm with Chris Owen, and we're like, all right, let's go down to the hotel and see if my board bag showed up. So we go down to the hotel, and the bar's raging. So it's like, all right, cool. Like, we'll stop in, hang, see everyone. And Frank Wells is there, and the Solomon team. So everyone's having a good time, and Frank's like, let's go to the pipe. And it's like, all right, cool. So we get in the rental cars and jam them straight onto the ski area, and we're just high marking the main bowl in front of the lodge, trying to get up to the upper section of where the pipe is. And we're going down, and I'm with Frank, and then Chris Owen has Blattner in the car with him. So we're like mobbing around, and we high mark up, and we're coming down, and I look over, and you know where the chairlifts are? They like flatten it out, so it's just like a cheese wedge. And I see Owen just like launch the car off this like 8-foot wall. Woo! Just like, and we're just like laughing, and just like, this is insane. And then Seth Neary sees us doing it, so he gets his truck, and he comes like mobbing in this huge truck, smashes it into this berm, and he gets stuck. So we're out there like pushing and like shoving on the thing, trying to get him out. And then we see security like running towards us. And Neary's like, dude, I got Vermont plates on my car. I can get out of this. Like, you guys from California or the West Coast, like, they're not going to let you go. So Frank like jumps in the car, and it's like Dukes of Hazzard style. He's like revving it, gassing it. And I go running around the front of the car, and he's like, never leave a man behind. And I come in, open the door, and like, I'm not even in. and he like lets it rip, and we're like bombing down the ski hill, and it's just like rollers like this, and he sends it. And I'm just like, oh my God, airbag for sure. There's like no way we're getting out of this. Kaboom, kaboom, no airbag. And we like bail. Everyone's jets off to their condos, and it's just like, all right, hide out. No one tell anyone. No one talk about it. And we thought it was just, essentially the 5 of us out there fucking around, having a great time. But where the bar was, it was just like showcasing the whole thing going down. So everyone in the bar was just watching us rip these cars all over the ski area. So, I mean, a lot of just like anti-establishment. I mean, just the opposite of everything that I had been a part of as like a ski racer, where you're like, this is insane. Like, there are no rules. This is punk rock. Like, let's go. So, good times.
Incredible. You mentioned Chris Owen. We happen to have a guest question from Chris Owen. Here we go.
Bill, one other thing is like, and I don't remember it 100% correctly, but I do remember you sleeping in your pants and boots all the time. Sometimes in the afternoon and sometimes just all night long and just getting up and going again the next day. Is that true?
Yes.
Let's talk about this. Sleeping in the boots is psychotic. I love that.
I don't know if I was sleeping in the boots. There was definitely sleeping in the outerwear.
Okay.
Like there was just a time where I was having like too much fun. And this, I think that this specifically, we were in Europe, in St. Moritz on a Morrow photo shoot. Like sidebar, Trevor Graves, there's a POV shot that we shot together that was literally a 35 millimeter film camera strapped on your shoulder like a GoPro. So the photos look like GoPros, but it was an actual huge film camera, and he had a remote, and he was hitting the trigger. So that was the highlight of that trip. But my whole thing was, I didn't know if it was going to end, the traveling thing. So I was just living it up, going out, partying. And my whole thing was, I will never be the last one in the car. So it's like, if I sleep in my gear, I'll sleep in my gear. And it was just, I was always, if I was hungover, I was in the car. So yeah, that was the story of just like squeak out every last minute of sleep. I mean, even to this day, I'm just super comfortable in my gear, where I'll get home, kick my boots off, and I'll wear overalls until I go to bed.
Damn.
It's just, I mean, I think like literally being raised in it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I probably wore outerwear more than I wore anything else. So you're just super comfortable in it.
All right, we're going to take a quick break and talk about one of my favorite places that exists on this earth, and that's Woodward Park City. It's fun all seasons. Now, this season is currently mountain bike season, and it's just heating up. They got rad events coming up. They got rebuilt trails, and they got some new multi-week programs for the Groms. Woodward is kicking off some brand new programs for kids as young as 3 years old starting this fall. Get them started early. Skateboarding, biking, scootering, or hitting the trampolines with fun 1-hour classes. Also, if you want to sharpen your skills for this winter and learn some tricks on the rollerboard, which is basically a snowboard with roller wheels, you can chuck carcass into the foam pit. You want to learn backflips? Take it to the foam pit first. So then when the snow hits, you're ready to go. Check the details at woodwardparkcity.com and get up there and have yourselves a good time. Now, I want to go back for a second too, because you were on a good tangent too about, coming from ski racing, being pretty buttoned up. Then all of a sudden you move to snowboarding. It's this anti-establishment situation, especially back then, like snowboarding wasn't allowed at some ski resorts, and it was much more like niche counterculture thing. How do you feel like where we are at as a culture from then to now? Do you have any takes on the overarching changes or things you want to get out on that subject?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's tough because with competition, dedication, it just takes that level of intensity. And when we started the snowboard team, or Abe Gilreath started the snowboard team in Mammoth, and we went to our first nationals. It was Abe, Dustin, Jeff, and I, and we were the snowboard team, and we went to Timberline, and which is cool because there's so many kids that were at that event that move on, but your training was just free riding. And we didn't really have the support of like the dryland programs or things like that. We had to forge it on our own, and I loved it because it was just like the boys riding every day. You were competing. We were doing well. And then you were making the rules. Like the coach was more of just supervision than someone guiding you. And I had a really tough time with it when, we moved back to Mammoth and we put the girls on the snowboard team, and it was super fun. But then you start seeing the program, it's pretty much the exact same thing as the ski team. It's like they got their committed people, there's a goal. And I was like wildly frustrated with it, where it's like, this isn't it, and I could see myself getting frustrated with Ben Weisner, the coach there. And it was like almost like an epiphany, where it's just like, it's just different. Okay, cool. Like I can accept that. Because I had the moment where it was just like, Spencer's a ripping little snowboarder.
And you're talking about your daughter for the listeners.
Yeah, so my daughter, and like coming up through the snowboard team, doing it, putting my daughter on the snowboard team, where you're like, this is awesome. Like I'm dropping my kids off at snowboard team, and great program, really enjoyed it as they're learning, like the younger ages, it's like super communal, all the dads everyone are there. And then you get to the events and it becomes a competition, right? And I'm like, I want her to do well. And all the parents are watching, and Spencer comes through, does her first practice run, comes up short on the jump. Second run, a little bit better, but still short. Third jump, we always operated in threes, right? Like give it 3 tries. Normally the third is the best. She comes around for the third run and she like goes the little mini baby line. I'm like, what is she doing? And Sarah, my wife, can see like the steam starting to come out of my ears, and like does another one. And I'm calling her on her phone going like, hey, how come you're not doing this? And they're like, oh, my coach does this. And I go like psycho mini league or, dad, where I like march over to the coach of like, what are you doing? Like she's almost got it. Practice is obviously still opening. You're not letting, and I'm just like being that guy. And then it was just like the moment of where I'm about to go like, don't you know who I am? And then I'm like, well, that's an asshole move. Like I'm not dropping that one. And I was just like so baffled by the whole process. And then after that, I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. Like I'm not doing this. I think, when I think about it, I mean, Elena Height comes to mind, where it was like, she was 14 when we were working together at Volcom, and she was so young, and just like pushing her and being a coach of just like, you got this, to, her landing that double at the X Games, where it was like, holy shit. But that was a point for me where I felt more like a parent to her, where I'm starting to watch away. Like I cared about her so much, and what she was risking became too much. So, I mean, I think that was a long-winded answer, but the culture at the beginning was so free. There were literally no rules, and now there's a bunch of rules. But I think that comes with progression.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like you said, too, if people are doing 1440s, that requires a degree of discipline, and it's just it's different times. But I think there are still those niche cultures that exist within snowboarding still. It's just the top of the totem pole as far as competitions has gotten fucking insane.
Well, yeah, I mean, like Jimmy Goodman's scene in Mammoth is amazing. Yeah. They have like a tight crew with like Andrew Miller and some of like the Wave Rave kids. That scene is cool. So, I mean, like those niche cultures are out there, but they're very niche and, maybe not as celebrated as they should be.
Mm-hmm. I like that. Well, let's go back to the arc of your career here and going up. And I'm curious when you started filming for these major videos, and what did that look like?
I mean, it was like A Live We Ride, where it was just like Wooly and those guys getting those opportunities were insane. And it really wasn't something to aspire to, because you didn't really know what it was. You weren't really seeing anyone. It was kind of more of the Warren Miller parts, So that was special. But like there also wasn't like a big commitment. It was like when they came to town, you filmed, and when they weren't there, you weren't. So it started with that. The filming thing, Todd Hazeltine was like a major fixture in Mammoth. Hugely inspirational for my brother, like throughout his career. So, I mean, that was when we kind of started honing in on parts. And then in 94, The Garden comes to town. And I think that's something where you really start to trip out, where where Wooly and Troy are there, and they're like, "Hey, we're going to the garden. Do you want to come?" And my brother like had school. I was a little bit ahead, and you're at Tioga Pass camping with Brian Iguchi and Terry A. Hawkinson.
Yeah, can I interrupt you for a sec? Jamie Lynn specifically wanted to ask a question about this. So
All right.
I'm going to tee that up. Here we go.
Hey, Billy, this is Jamie. How you doing, brother? I got to ask you, as a grom, 15, 16 years old, growing up in Mammoth, what was it like camping out with myself, Gooch, Hawkin, out in the woods in Sonora for those garden sessions? Had to have been an incredible opportunity and experience for me. What was your take on it? And what was your takeaway from it? Was it something that, were you scared? Were you stoked? And if you were, it never seemed like it when we were hanging out, brother. What you brought to the table was inspiring and made a huge impression on us as riders a couple of years, your senior, and always made a huge impression on us for just kind of a grom growing up in Mammoth. Love you, brother. Thank you.
Love you, Jamie. Yeah, I mean, that period was happening. There was a film going on. Richard and Troy were making a movie, and the whole Southern Sierras thing, like they were thinking that like they were surfers. So Virginia Lakes, we would call it Virginia Lakes. They called it Secrets. They called Sonora Pass the garden. So there were all these like little things where they were keeping it secret, not telling anyone where it was. I think the special part about it was like just really being present. Like there was nothing else going on. Everyone was all in, committed. The level of respect that I had for Terrier and Gooch, I mean, because it was pretty special. We started at Tioga with, actually there was a trip. Yeah, we started at Tioga with Gooch, Wooly, and Troy, and it was just like camping illegally, like no one's even supposed to be up there, so it was like really remote. And then the level of respect you want to give to Gooch and Terrier is, I mean, they're doing stuff that's never been done before every single time, like new transfers and just how everyone was looking at it, and they were just so much better than everyone. Super motivating as a young kid of like, hey, don't get in the way because there's like movie magic happening right now and you have an opportunity to be a part of it. So being, just sucking it in. Like there was no distractions. There's no phones. There's nothing else. Like you're sitting around the campfire, you're learning, and there's engaging conversation. Those guys were thinking about cool shit. They're building a brand. The movie was an art piece. Perillo was there through those things, and his train of thought through it was all amazing. And then we got through that session, and then Wooly and Troy were talking, and then Jamie came to the garden. And then that's where we found like the primo camping spot with a lot of the filming, and just being blown away I just spent a week with with Gooch and Terrier, and now Jamie's coming. And just watching Jamie put on a show of just like the style he had, how effortless everything was. But I mean, I think the camping, the sunsets every night, like the bonfires, the like really living in the moment. And Wooly was just so tapped in as a leader of like, this is the vibe of the film that I'm making. I mean, everything was just so, I think it was really curated by him, but no, you would never know that he was trying. It was very organic and special.
Yeah, the thing that Troy was mentioning, that, he was filming a lot of this stuff, and the scene was that they were camped out in the woods filming, basically. Like you wouldn't know, nowadays somebody goes to a jump and they're like, I think I can front seven this. Let's film at fisheye. It's like this kind of whole contrived situation. And then back then it was like you guys were just having a session and someone was kind of pointing a camera at you guys from the woods and you wouldn't even know they were there.
Yeah, I mean, it was just like, yeah, that's exactly it. It was never a setup shot. It was like the session happened and it was documented. It wasn't like no one was ever counting you in.
Yeah. 3, 2. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah, and even, talking to Jamie, he was also mentioning, he's like, just so people know, like, you were the one spearheading a lot of the sessions with like, high levels of motivation for the garden as well.
That's cool to hear. I mean, the one where Jamie did the Cab 9. I mean, it was like so sick because like from our campground, you're looking across the valley and you can just barely see these like wind ridges. It kind of look like Chair 12 or something, White Bark. And it's like, we got to go there. And it was like, you didn't even know what it was. And you woke up on the morning and you just like set out on this adventure to like see if it was anything. And it becomes like one of the sickest jump. It's like a tiny little cheese wedge and an epic session. And Jamie's like literally progressing the sport at that moment. And it wasn't about progressing the sport. It was natural progression. It was like, what was next for Jamie?
There's a quick clip in there Troy wanted me to bring up of you and you're reading a magazine in the garden. And he was wondering if you remember what magazine was.
That was definitely a Playboy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It was funny. I mean, what am I, like 16 years old? And I mean, that's your entertainment. Like, it's just like there's dudes, a couple nudie mags laying around. And it's funny because it's in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just sitting there with like this kind of jaw dropped, like morning look on my face, just flipping through the mag.
So good. Yeah, that's such an iconic time. I can't even imagine. Now, do you find yourself slowing down a little bit in your older age? Maybe getting off hill a little earlier? Well, you could be dehydrated. 75% of Americans are dehydrated. And that goes up when you're at elevation, when you're in the mountains. So I drink Bubs Hydrate or Die hydration packets. There's 2,000 milligrams of electrolytes. There's no added sugar. There's no artificial flavors. Let me tell you, when I'm hydrated, I ride better. I can ride longer. I have more energy. All in all, my vitality is just better. So if you're interested in picking up some Bubs Naturals Hydrate or Die, head on over to bubsnaturals.com and use promo code BOMBHOLE for 20% off your order. And stay hydrated, people, with Bubs Naturals Hydrate or Die. Going to kind of derail for a second here with the garden talk. Jamie had another question that I thought was really good. Here we go.
Hey, Billy, I got one more question for you. 2000, Japan, there was a contest. I remember you just coming out of the trees at this straight line on this feature, and it was a hip jump, frontside hip jump. Everyone was hitting it, landing halfway down the line, and then you just came out of nowhere and blasted like 40, 50, 60 feet, boned out frontside air, stomped it. What was the story on that jump? Were you a part of the contest? Were you just there on like a Morrow trip? I remember there was more of a story to it, and I'd love to hear some more details about that, because the riding that was going down was awesome, but what you did on that single hip, I would have gave you top podium placement for that and just that one trick. So if you got some more information and story about that, brother, I'd love to hear it.
There's a lot of good Japan stories. I mean, that was Free Ride, which was like a contest series that was going on, and which was sick about it. It was like all the film guys. So it was just like, hey, if you're like a snowboarding star, you're invited to this thing. So it was like all the Volcom guys, all the Morrow guys. It was just JP, Jeremy. I mean, everyone was at those things. And the competing and the tricks were never my thing. So I think I competed, didn't come close to qualifying for whatever it was, but this hip was just so big and so perfect. And like I said, like the tricks weren't my thing. It's like if I could go fast and bigger, that's what I wanted to do. So I just sessioned that hip the whole time. And it was actually pretty sick because I think it was Gunny or someone told me that it was 100 feet. Like if you could make it over this certain point. So I was like, all right, I'm going to jump that. I'm going to jump all the way over it today. And I jumped over it and beat the shit out of myself. Like the next morning I walked up, like my legs were so sore, I could barely walk down the stairs.
Legendary. Chris Owen said something that he was talking about. He's like, Billy's a better snowboarder than Todd Richards, but Todd just has better tricks, which I love. I thought that was, I had to write that down while we were talking in reference to what we just said. But I'm going to bounce back around. Let's go back to the garden era too. And where do we go from there with Volcom? Like when that video comes out, it had to be a cult classic and people must have lost their minds.
Yeah, it was a masterpiece, to have the time, the soundtrack, the editing. I think what Wooly did, it was all hand cut. They cut the film and spliced it together. So the effort that they put into it, I think really came through in the end product. And that was it. Like Wooly and Troy were artists. They were filmmakers. And when they went into projects like that, it was a mad scientist thing. It was staying up all night. All of your eggs were into it. You like literally lived it, ate it, breathed it. There was nothing else. And I think that, that culture was bred into me for when I got in-house and started making movies. It's just like, that's the level of commitment that it takes to make a Volcom movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you guys stayed on brand with that. But it seems like you had a good career too. And one thing Richards brought up was mentioning something along, or maybe Chris told me to bring it up. But when you were riding for Morrow, at one point you were like riding the step-ons,
mm-hmm.
and he was like, he's the only person that could ever make him look good.
Yeah, I think too where. Like I was a good snowboarder, but I was never the best, right? So it was like product innovation. Like I loved experimenting. Working with Rob was awesome. If they're going to put it in the engineers that they had, if someone was putting that time and thought into it, I could buy into it. And if that helps extend my career, it's awesome. Like I love it. And they built a great system.
Yeah, really cool.
That photo that you have is in it.
Yeah, that's a Trevor Graves. Yeah,
You're on step-ons in that?
Yeah.
But you can't even tell.
Do they have high backs on them, or is it just the
It was
flat
built in the
disc?
boot, yeah.
Built in the boot.
Mm-hmm. But it's still a sick photo. I feel like most of the time when you see old photos of like Savard or somebody in step-ons, you're like, oh, like it. I don't know. It didn't look right or something.
We just all called them step-ons?
Oh, you did?
No, like all of us, no one called them step-ins.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
What are they called now?
Step-ons.
Step-ons.
They were step-ins back then.
Oh.
So this is Jake at his best, right? Jake Burton. So I worked at Burton for a little bit. We can just talk about this. So when I got there, they were developing it. And the project name was called Aussie. So it was like when you had an Aussie meeting, everyone knew it was kind of top secret. And we were part of the naming group. So Evan Rose and like that whole thing where we're concepting it, meeting, coming up with the name, and Jake was just like, no, it's Step On. Like, we're calling it Step On. And there was no negotiating. He knew it. And to sit here now and just go like, you called it Step On, you called it Step On. He knew that stuff. Like, that's where his mind was at. I think it goes back to like another mad scientist.
Yeah.
Jake was a mad scientist. And when he knew. He just totally recoined step-ins to step-ons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were talking last night on the couch about these like true leaders in snowboarding. You mentioned Jake, you mentioned Wooly. I feel like you've been around these people that have shaped these iconic brands. Like, what separates them, do you think, from the average brand owner, founder?
They were 100% all in. There was nothing else than it. It's like, I think that, Wooly's a dad now, but his first child was Volcom. He was so dedicated to it. When I got to Volcom, there's some good stories in here where it was like we'd be building ads, and they were handmade or they're handmade ads. They'd go into the computer, sit with Ethan Anderson, and just like grind on these ads. And you would print them out, bring him to his desk, and he would make notes. He'd like, I think we should move this here. We should adjust this here. All right, cool. Bring it back. And then we go back, work on it, and he would check it off. It was just like that level of commitment on everything he did. And when you look at Volcom, you think it's just like rock stars, parties, like it's going insane, trade shows. And then to like see the work that he was doing and the commitment that he made to Volcom was intense. And I would say the same thing about Jake, where it was just like such commitment, like really listening to the riders. The rider roundtables were no joke. Like that was the level of commitment, and the timing wasn't necessarily in the perfect point in the product calendar to be having those meetings. But when it was something that he believed in, it changed. Like there was it was never too late. Like this is what they want. This is what we're going to do. And I think that's one of the things that the sport is missing now is that those decision makers at the top were so passionate at the ground level, where it was just like, it's not a CEO position. You know, Jake's riding 100 days a year. Wooly is surfing and snowboarding to this day. Like that's his grind. That's what he wants to do. And I mean, culturally, there's so many more distractions now to keep you away from that. But that attention to detail, I mean, it goes to like a Kobe or, you know, who's your football guy?
Brady,
you know, like that level of commitment and excellence that doesn't come from the front office. You got to have the right people in the right places. And I mean, when at Volcom, everyone in the like marketing department, the product department was 20 years old, like running the ship. Like, hey, here's the keys. When I was there, it was just like, hey, here's the keys, go. And the trust, I mean, when we made Escramble, it was like, all right, I want to make a snowboard movie. I built like a little budget to go to New Zealand. And I bring it into Richard, and I'm like, hey, I want to make a movie. Here's the budget. And he's like, this looks great. And he signed everything, right? So he signs this budget, and I'm all excited. I'm like, we're going to New Zealand. We're making a movie. And he's like, oh, you just got to run it by my dad and Doug, who was the CFO. So I'm like, so it's like 2 mornings later, I walk into the CO office, and I'm like confident I got Wooly's signature. And I'm like, yeah, Wooly just told me I needed to like, you know, run this by you and let you know that he approved the money. And Renee, his dad's like, let me see your budget. And so I hand him this like Excel spreadsheet that I printed out. He takes one look at it, and he's like, Doug, these numbers don't add up. Add it up for me. And I was like, oh shit. Like, I thought this was just like ceremonial. And I had to like run down the whole logistics of the trip, what I was thinking, what my goals were, just like, I mean, essentially out of my ass. Like, what I thought Wooly said it was all good. Like, and so I get grinded in there for like an hour. And I walk out just kind of sweating and tripping. And Wooly like runs out of his office like a little kid. He's like, how'd that work out for you? I was just like, dude, did you set me up for that? Like, you totally knew that was going to happen. And it was like one of the biggest learning lessons for me as a professional is just like, be prepared. It's like, double check your math. Like you skip one cell in your spreadsheet and you kind of look like a fool. And I mean, it was just a great time. And I'm sure he was getting grilled by his dad throughout the whole process, and to kind of pass it on is fun.
Yeah, I love that. And I love thinking about those early days of Volcom as well too. And it really had a youth against establishment feel. And it was like a young, you know, Volcom was one of the early brands to like sponsor groms, I feel like, across the board. They always had like the young up and coming skateboarders or snowboarders. And I'm curious about the amount of energy and the intent behind, you know, always going after the youth.
Yeah, I mean, like the other big tagline was "Big Youth Happening," which is just amazing. And the segment in the garden, which is Jeff, Jana, Ben, Joel, Heinrich. I mean, to the Pennywise song is like a classic. And I think, yeah.
You also had that video, Big Youth Happening.
Yeah,
that promo video
that came out later.
With the click and drag part.
Yeah.
Did you work on that one?
Yeah, we made that.
Sick.
Yeah, with RT, who's like does a bunch of the video editing and stuff there at Volcom. So I think Wooly always knew that and empowered the kids. Troy too. I mean, Troy was it. I think Troy was 19 years old, full pro career ahead of him, and it's like, hey, do you want to come on and be the marketing guy? And Troy took that route like as a grom at 19 and was able to build out that program into what it was. And I mean, I think the grassroots level that they took it to, you know, from Let the Kids Ride Free series with the Totally Crustaceous Surf Tour.
Maybe explain what that is, because snowboarders don't know much about that.
Yeah, so it was just grassroots. There was so much grassroots marketing, like the parties, the events, the films were all community driven, where, I mean, a lot of the times, I mean, for Alive We Ride and the Garden, I rode for Quicksilver then. I wasn't even on Volcom yet. It was just so communal. So as we grew, the contest scenes were always weird, and they came up with a surf tour, 100% free, beach games, just a huge raging party for kids. And we saw the success of that, so we started Peanut Butter Rail Jam. And at that point, Twitty and I were working on it, where it's like, all right, hey, they were super successful on surf. We got to change the game here and come up with something new. And at that point, any sort of like rail event or slope style was all in a line, right? So just to like claim it, not claim it, but I feel like we were the first ones to like take them all and put them next to each other. It just contained the environment. I mean, one of my big initiatives was like, put the tiniest little mailbox on the side of the course event. So the kid that's not good shows up and he rides all day and he goes home and he's like, I rode Peanut Butter Rail Jam all day today. So it was super inclusive, where everyone felt a part of it. The first one was at Mammoth, and then we did 3 events, and then it was like 5 events. And then there was a whole team of just running events, where the team that we had, I think, was doing, they had a team specifically for the surf events. And then we had a team that did the snow events and the wild in the parks, which were the skate events. I mean, that whole series, and like what was cool about that is then that led to Red Bull Heavy Metal, which was something, it was like one of the first events that Red Bull had actually partnered with someone. The Niagara event was sick, so we took the same strategy from Peanut Butter Rail Jam. Here's our 3 zones. That year, I traveled the country, just from city to city to city to city, looking for spots. I probably went to 10 cities that year to find the Niagara spot that I think JP and Jeremy and a crew had been to it. So we picked the spot. I was really excited. And 2 weeks before the event's about to start, Seth calls me and he's like, hey, all those rails in Niagara Falls are aluminum and no one will go sideways on them? I'm like, no, like, you gotta be joking. So I called the event team, and they're like, we'll just replace them. Like, we'll just get the measurements. So we essentially cut out all the rails, put in steel rails for the event. And I was like there, grinded them, made sure they were all smooth, and then had the event, and then cut them back out and put back in the aluminum ones.
Damn. Wow. That was your, but did Bozung win the Niagara one?
Yeah, Bozung won. I think Seth won.
Yeah, Scotty Arnold did well.
Yeah, I think those were the 3 winners.
Yep.
That was like Damalski's first trip, the first time he had ever traveled. Damalski was a grom and showed up there and rode super well.
I remember the clip of, I think, J2 hitting the hubba, and those were timeless because those were also in all the videos.
They're
and
in
everything.
the grenade videos.
Yeah, they're in the
Shots
grenade
of
videos.
Kyle Clancy and
yep.
stuff. Yeah.
Clancy switch 50, switchback 180 in the video part. Yeah. Legendary. And yeah, there's a bunch of other stops. Then it went on to, they did one in Salt Lake and they did one all over, but they took a break for a while. But yeah, those were timeless. Now I'm curious, going back to the youth feeder events that we're talking about, the PBRJ. Aside from USASA, there ain't much out there these days.
No, I mean, I think that it is essentially it. I've kind of had this thought of like, how do you start? It's Sean's launching Snow League, X Games is their thing, the Grand Prix have their thing, but there's really the only feeder system is the USASA. I mean, I competed in it. Sure. I mean, you competed in it. Pat Moore, did you compete in it?
I actually did one a couple years ago, border cross.
Yeah, nice. You were more of a
no, I didn't grow up.
You were more of a Peanut Butter Rail Jam.
Yeah,
kid.
Actually, you put me on Volcom 22-ish years ago out of a Peanut Butter Rail Jam.
Yeah, I think you were wearing white pants and a leather jacket.
Yeah.
That checks out.
I was blown away when he called me. I thought it was a joke. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
But
I mean, PBRJ.
Yeah, back to the grassroots component. I think that's the silver bullet, or the golden lining. It's if X Games or Sean or someone just bought USASA, make it your nonprofit, and plug in that grassroots movement right into your elite pro level, because there isn't a path. It's like you kind of do USASA. It's really hard to make that jump. A lot of the events are invite only, so you don't see it. I think about golf where I am now. It's like there's a pretty straight, grindy path if you want to be a pro golfer. In snowboarding, you don't have that path, so you kind of get that jump off point. Well, am I going to film? Am I going to compete? You try and do both, and it gets. I mean, as a teenager, those are really hard decisions to make. The USASA Nationals is such an event. I mean, they have opening ceremonies now. It's something. All the parents, everyone saves. Like, that's their big trip for the year. And I think that there is a culture there that the industry overlooks sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then you go into Rev Tour, and then it's a whole debacle, 100%. I like that though. I do think it's actually really makes the light bulb go off about the importance of the youth. And how I do think so much of Volcom's success came from putting energy into the youth. And
yeah, I mean, it was like going back to those trips when you got invited on them. You weren't really hazed. It was just like you were part of it.
You were welcome.
You were part of it. It wasn't. No one was ever like shitting on you or like making you pick up the trash or like do this for me. It was just like, oh no, we're here. We're one like entity, like we're all supporting each other and super welcoming. The family thing was no joke. It was like you were really a part of something. I mean, in the early days of Volcom, if you saw someone wearing a t-shirt or had a sticker, you walked up to him and it was, do you know Troy and Wooly? Like, do you know Tucker? And it was just like, yeah, you knew them. And that was where Volcom was, and everyone embraced that. That really turns into wildfire. Like, it grows when there's that level of camaraderie and acknowledgement that goes down.
Mm-hmm. I thought an interesting topic would be for the listeners. We went and we played 9 holes this morning. Billy took a skin or two off of me. I played pretty well. I was all over the place, but I digress. There were some interesting topics about the state of snowboarding and thinking about how basically a lot of brands really want to grow, and just become huge billion-dollar companies, and it may not be great for the health of the overall industry. I'd love to hear you shed some light on your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was that time where Quicksilver was knocking on the door of being a billion-dollar brand, and you had the Billabongs, the Volcoms, everyone, that became the race, to be a billion-dollar brand. How do you scale? How do you grow? How do you tackle middle America? Because it's essentially we're just like surf and snow, so we're on the coasts. And I think we would have, hindsight's 2020, but we would have been a lot better off with a bunch of $20 million brands, $50 million brands than everyone racing to be a $1 billion brand where, someone like Quicksilver had such a stranglehold, and then it's like you buy Quicksilver or you buy Rossignol, and then you're buying Cobra Golf, and there's just like things that start digressing and taking away from your culture. It's the best things are when you're 100% focused on it. Mm-hmm. The Lakers aren't trying to go into baseball and football. Like, they play basketball. And I think that those products have really accelerated in it when your commitment to it. I think that, with Volcom, it got to a point that was frustrating for me where the growth was just such a priority. It had been bought, it had been sold, and things change, right? So then there was like a bitterness that developed, and then things aren't going how they were, and you leave, and like there was a bitterness where I was like bitter at Volcom. It was such a huge part of my life. I was 100% dedicated to it. I gave it everything that I gave my life to it. I worked there late, and when it starts to change, but everything changes. And now I'm like really proud of Volcom. It's like I put on a beanie and I support it. Like, I don't necessarily agree with the direction or where it is, but that time period there was so special. And for that to be my first job, like, I didn't even really know what was happening. You'd have a company meeting and everyone's sitting on the floor going, we grew 40%. And I'm like, is that good or bad? And it was insane. And it changes, and I'm like totally content with it. There was a time where I was talking with Ethan Anderson, who was the creative genius behind a lot of the things at Volcom. And it was really nice to come to that conclusion that Volcom's awesome. It's just different, and I'm okay with that. And I'm proud of it. And, Emigar is still someone that I have respect for. And Seth is a longtime friend. And the times that we shared together were amazing. I don't agree with everything that happens there now, but that's okay. I mean, it's like we all grow up, we all make different decisions. There's different paths for us all. And, culturally it changes. I mean, I hope snowboarding finds a little bit more community. I think when we talk about those grassroots events that we invested a ton of time and energy. And I mean, I think that when we do the JLA Bank Slalom, it's like the family puts it on. I see with what you do with Bomb Hole Cup, those events are so crucial to what happens in the industry, and they're just not like they used to be. I mean, everyone was doing rail jams. What was going on with the Open Series is at Burton, there were these cultural events that breeded the culture of the sport. And when we don't have those anymore, and I mean, we kind of talked about it before, it's like the magazines, the videos, it was so focused. You weren't distracted. It wasn't like you watched the snowboard video, and in that same video, there was some hot chicks, and then some weird ads, and then some motocross, and then some golf and everything. It was just so honed in that your commitment to it was very captivated. And all of that is so spread out. So you got to come back to some sort of cultural level to give an opportunity for everyone to come together and share in what's awesome.
Yeah, wow. I love hearing what you just said. And it almost seems like to me, there's all this talk about growing the sport all the time. At least on this show, it comes up. It's a common topic. How do we grow the sport? How do we grow the sport? But from what I'm hearing, not even in regards to that, but for the health of the culture of snowboarding, the getting back to the smaller grassroots events really help this thing flourish.
Dude, the small community.
Yep.
Grows from there. If you want to grow the sport, you really got to water this.
If you're not prepared to run for the Olympics and compete, there's no secondary group for you. It's I think Snowboard Club would be an awesome idea where it's just hey, everyone meets here. We're all going to group up, but who takes the lead on that and how that cultivates? Because a lot of those kids that loved it don't want to compete anymore, and then they walk away from it. So it's there's a big gap of, I mean, I hope and I think that they all come back to it when they have kids because they have the skills. I mean, that was with our kids. Is that, I mean, I think that there was a point where everyone thought that I wanted to have superstar Olympians. And it was no, my goal is to get them to ride as quickly as possible where I don't have to carry them, pick them up, put their bindings on. And I mean, my wife did a great job getting them on the hill. When we left Volcom, moved to Burton, and we had, Spencer was kind of skiing a little bit, and then there were huge initiatives in youth snowboarding. So I was dude, we are not walking across the parking lot at Stowe with skis in our hands. We're going to bump into Jake for sure. So we went hardcore snowboarding, right? And I think Jeffrey was 4 years old. She was the youngest one to have in the snowboard program there. And it just turned into something. And that's who we were. So, I mean, when I look at my snowboard career, there was a grom career, there was a pro career, there was an industry career, and then there was family snowboarding. And how you digest all those avenues of it, because, you get so narrow into what you're into, and it's really a huge culmination. And most of the people that are buying shit are on the family side, which against kind of the least amount of attention or that mainstream culture. But riding with them and seeing them develop their skills. And now when we go snowboarding, we snowboard as a family. And it's something that we share. We don't go all the time. If Jeffrey's playing volleyball or Spencer has a high school golf tournament, we don't really get out there, but we, do an early season trip. We've been going to Bald Face for Christmas for more than 10 years. I mean, the kids have had more Christmas holidays at Baldface than they've had at home, which is insane. So, and I think that like that's what we do, and how we share and how we ride. When you can tread pow with your wife and your 2 kids, that's pretty much as good as it gets.
All right. Speaking of Baldface, we have a guest question from Jeff Pensero.
It's Jeff. I'm here to ask you a guest question on the bomb hole, and I just want you to know you are such an inspirational father to me. You've done such a great job with the girls, and I love the fact that we get to kind of be in this thing together. I was wondering if you could speak to how being a dad has just impacted your life and maybe even impacted your snowboarding. I'm interested to hear this and many more tidbits from Wild Bill. Thanks, brother. Love you. Can't wait to see you again.
Thanks, brother. Yeah, I mean, like the family thing is as cool as it gets. And I mean, kind of where we were just talking about, there was a whole phase of it where it's easy to burn out. I mean, I think we were talking about it. It's like not being a pro snowboarder makes you love snowboarding so much more. Pro snowboarders don't snowboard that much. And like as a family snowboarder, a dad snowboarder, it was cool. Like Stowe, we were riding every weekend with the kids. And we were talking about being goofy, regular. Are your kids goofy? I'm goofy foot. The kids are regular foot. And like subconsciously, I think it was by design. I heard a rumor, I don't know if it's true or not, that Phil Mickelson isn't left-handed and that he learned how to play golf from standing across from his dad. So he just would reach back, mirror it, and that's how he learned. I'm like, man, if I can take that same train of thought to snowboarding, that's actually pretty cool. I'm sitting here face-to-face with my kid, and I would just hold their hands, and you can kind of turn them and steer them. And as they got the hang of it, it went from that, and then we do like palms up, and then one hand, and then they could, take off. There's that first time to see your kid link toe heel properly on their own is insane. So, like to see Jeffrey and Spencer do that, and Stowe was awesome. My wife was amazing. Like living in Vermont and having snowboarding kids is like brutal. It's cold. Like putting the gear. When you talk about that, probably one of my proudest moments was dropping Spencer off for kindergarten or first grade for ski PE day. And it was like, so we worked at Burton. So she is kitted out. She's got like the dopest jacket, the pant, the board. Everything's matching. And you're like, drop her off at school and she's walking across the school parking lot with her board under her arm. You're like, this is awesome. Like there's nothing that gets better than this. And the effort that Sarah put into it was amazing. She had a 5-run rule. She's like, all right, kids, if I put you in all this gear and we drive all the way to the ski area, we got to do 5 runs. And I'm like, that's awesome. Like I'm backing that 100%. And we go up one weekend and it is freezing rain, wind, negative temperatures. And we do 2 runs and I'm like, over this, like we're fucking out of here. And Sarah's like, we haven't done 5 runs. I'm like, are you serious? You're going 5? She's like, yeah, if I put all this gear on these kids and we're doing this, like we're doing 5 runs. I'm like, I'm out of here. I'll have the hot chocolate ready when you guys get in. And they did the rest of the runs and like came in and kids are totally fine. No one's crying. No one's upset. And like they persevered through that. And now they're like little pow shredders and it's unbelievable.
That's incredible. We have a question from your daughters. Here we go.
Hey everyone at the Bomb Hole, I'm Jeffrey.
And I'm Spencer, and we're Billy Anderson's daughters. Dad, we wanted to ask you what your favorite and least favorite memories are raising us around snowboarding.
Love you, bye.
The favorites are hands down Baldface. Like Jeff had the lodge. I didn't even have kids, and we had become really close. And he's like, we're gonna do Christmas at the lodge. And we had talked about it. And then I think that there was a chance where Jeff was actually thinking about selling the lodge where he was going to get out. And he's like, hey, we got to do Christmas in case something happens. And we did the first Christmas where it was just all the kids were just playing. Like it was like hardly any snowboarding, a little adult shredding. You got this massive lodge to yourself that literally feels like home. And then as the girls became better snowboarders, there was one day with Spencer where she was a pretty good she was 7 years old. And we had one of those, the 110 backhill boards. And we had taken it up there. And I'm like, I think she can ride this. I'm like, Jeff, do you have any wood screws? So I went and found wood screws and I just drilled her bindings to the board. And we did like one run in front of the lodge that afternoon. And I'm like, Jeff, I want to take her out tomorrow. And he's just like, dude, when we leave, you're literally there for the day. So you're going to be in the CAD if it doesn't work out. And I'm like, I'm willing to do it. And it was really cool because Paula's dad was there at 70 years old shredding. And Spencer was 7 and did the whole day. And you're just like, wow. This is as good as it gets. Nothing gets better than that. And then it was a couple years later, like Proud Dad moment with Jeffrey, just the bluest bluebird powder day. And I'm like, just like GoPro dad, just like ripping around, following your kids. And I think that Jeffrey was maybe, 8 years old. It's just a couple years later. And then I ended up like posting it to Instagram and she was riding Jones boards and I think Andrew Miller hit me up. He's like, hey, can we post that video? And the thing went ballistically viral where it's just like those opportunities are so genuine and organic and you see the stoke that everyone can share in it, where those are special times. And, for Jeff to give us that opportunity to go there and now all the kids are shredding, but we're kind of jumping into the next generation of it, where it's like Jamie's got his son there, Travis had his son there, where there were like little moments like that where it kind of keeps going. And, the Christmas spirit where Jeff puts on a hat and reads The Nightmare Before Christmas before we all start, on Christmas Eve. And, lifelong friendships that started through snowboarding. My closest friends are from this. I think about, Jay Twitty, who was like a huge inspiration and help. Like I still talk to him, and Ryan Boys and I talk on the weekly. Brian Henderson, who I met through Snowboard Team, is one of my closest friends through snowboarding. And there's just been like so many things that have connected through the years, and it's not just one facet of my life. It keeps growing and growing and growing. And where I don't snowboard as much as I used to. This year was probably the least I've ever ridden in my life. It's funny because I was thinking the opposite. I still consider myself a snowboard. And as I was coming here today, I was almost like, this is like a nice kind of closure moment for me. Like I get to like come in here and tell my story about what an amazing journey. And as I sit here and think about it, I was making notes before I came. It's like, it's in my DNA. It's like, I think I'll always be a snowboarder. It's like, and I think that that's something that goes back to the culture of it, that, during the 90s, you identified yourself as a snowboarder. Like that was who you are. And there were always times in my life where it was like, who are you if you don't identify as anything? Like, do you just identify as an accountant or like someone that works at a gas station? Like, who are you? I would assume you identify yourself as a snowboarder,
Absolutely.
And you identify yourself. And, Jeff identifies himself as a snowboarder. And you know what? Just to circle back, like Jake would identify himself as a snowboarder. I don't know if, some of the people that are running the companies and sitting in marketing director chairs or CEOs consider themselves or identify themselves as snowboarders, and I think that those were important moments of the culture, is like that everyone really, it was in their DNA.
Holy shit, Billy. That was a banter journey that was wise. Those are wise words. Thank you for sharing that. Blum, do you have anything to add?
The stuff you do at the JLA project is really admirable. And I know that like the culture and community are obviously really important to you. And having the bank slalom and building the skate park in Jeff's memory really are a good stepping stone to bringing the culture and the people together. And I just thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And that's been a huge part of my life. And yeah, it goes right in line with what you're saying about building the community.
I mean, snowboarding has given me everything. Gaining that independence, that trip at 16, it was about the same time that my parents split up, right? So it was just like a great home life, everything was ready. And then at 16, it was like, go. And the kids don't have those opportunities and that freedoms at those ages to kind of self-discovery, which I think is important. And, you know, with the bank slalom, it's awesome. Where we've just handed off more and more stuff to Spencer, where it's like, I don't want to do the awards. Like, you do the welcome speech. Like, I like to build the course. Like, that's my thing. The guys at Unbound, for as long as we've been doing it, have been amazing. You know, starting with Oren, Michael Gregory, TJ, Jared. Those guys are awesome. And I think it's interesting, too. Like, that's their favorite event of the year. Like, when I get there, they're just like, epic. We've been looking forward to this.
And they have their division. And
it's like
so inclusive.
Where those guys they have a rake in their hand every day of the year, you know? And they're there smiling and laughing. And we build the whole course. The course build is probably the favorite part of the race for me, where it's just like, the boys are stoked. They're grinding events all year. And if it's their favorite event, that says something. So it's like, really get to spend time with those guys. Running the event is fun, like putting everyone in the start gate. The awards are great. We have a kids race, so the whole second day is all kids. I mean, it's hilarious how kids line up compared to adults. Lining up the adults for a start gate's a nightmare. Kids got it, no problem.
You got the moms division?
Yeah, what classes? Let's run through some classes.
Yeah, I mean, with the girls, we started, there's 6 and under, 7 to 9, 9 to 13, 13 to 15, and then 16 and over, I think is how it goes. And then we have a mom's division. And what we do, like on the Sunday for the kids race, we bring the course in, not so aggressive, make it user-friendly to everyone. And my wife was a little intimidated by it. And it was just like, no, like, just race with the kids. We can run you guys at the end of the day. No one will watch, just participate. And it's awesome. Like, everyone's like nervous, practically pissing their pants before they drop in, and like giggly. And it's just like genuine emotion that's really fun. And then you'll wrap for the day, and we do a coaches race for all the snowboard team kids. Like, those guys don't necessarily get, recognized as much as they do. So there's like huge bragging rights for them. And then on the first day, we do, younger AMs, older AMs. I think the biggest class now is like the 40 plus. I think everyone wants to do a 50 plus.
Yep.
So it's great. I think, too, with JLA Bank Slalom, it was something that originally started where I really wanted all of Jeff's friends to come in the snowboard community globally. And that's a huge ask, where it's gotten narrower and it's very community. It's for Mammoth. It's like, we announced the signups the week before the event. There isn't a lottery. It's like, you follow, you get on it, and it's there. And it's very genuine to the community that's in Mammoth. And I really enjoy it. I mean, there were moments where I'm like, I'm not doing it right. And I'm like, no, these are exactly the people that should be here. I don't need, someone flying from across the country to come to take a spot from someone in Mammoth, So I think that you take it to that grassroots level and take care of the right people, they take care of you, kind of thing.
Well said. And we've been talking about the JLA Bank Slalom. We talked about the skate park briefly. And, we haven't touched on the fact that, it was Billy and Jeff for a long time. You guys were a duo. He's your brother. For the listeners that don't know, he passed away in the prime of his career and is absolutely beloved by the snowboard community, and looked up to and adored and admired and infectious in so many ways. And I'm so curious to kind of hear if you want to touch on, how that affected you and that whole process.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to even start at the beginning, where it was just like we were connected at the hip. He was my best friend. And I think to lose your best friend is really intense, I think leading, there's a couple of good stories. We'll start light and then we can kind of go where we were here together. I had just gotten the job at Volcom, And it was dumping here in Salt Lake, and the trade show was about to start. And I talked with Troy and Twitty, and I'm like, hey, it's like dumping. I don't want to drive the RV down there tonight. And they're like, don't worry about it. And like 20 minutes later, they call, and they're like, hey, we want that RV in the parking lot. It's a huge billboard. You got to be here. You got to drive all night. And I'm like, all right, fuck it. I got to go. And Jeff's like, you're going? I'm going. Like, I got your back. So we jump in the RV, and it's got to be like 10:30 or 11. And we start mobbing down the highway, and it's dumping. There's like a good 6 inches on the road, and we pull up behind a snowplow. It's like plowing the road on a 4-lane road. And I'm like, dude, we can't follow this guy the whole way to Vegas. Like, we're never going to make it. And Jeff's like, fucking pass it. So like I pull in the left lane, and I got this 40-foot RV pinned. And I'm just like driving past the snowplow, and my brother's yelling at me. He's like, you're gonna fucking hit the snowplow. You're gonna hit it. I'm like, I'm driving off the fucking road. Like, and it was just like such a warrior moment of the two of us just like, yeah, we're like, it's all for the cause. We're doing it together. And like we like pass the snowplow, we make it to Vegas, and the thing is just a fucking mud bog. Like you can't see one logo on the thing. It looks like a piece of shit. And Troy and Waller was like, oh, maybe if it's gonna look like that, you guys didn't need to drive all night. It's like, dude, we literally risked our lives to like have that thing in the parking lot. So I mean, like classic brother moments like that. I mean, if you ever filmed with my brother, his passion was on another level, you know. There was that commitment to, like, almost like seeing red. He was just like so entrenched and cared so much about it, where it was just like anger and grit and throwing shit and breaking shit. And we'd have a session, and we'd walk away from it, and then he'd like turn into my little brother, and he'd just be like, you know what? I had so much fun today. And I'm like, wait, that was fun for you? Like, that was miserable for everyone else, you know? Like, but like the emotion and the passion that came out through it was like so fucking cool. And like, he was a little kid. I always loved riding with him. I mean, even up until the end, I was always his big brother. And like, legit, committed, core, cool, passionate. But like my little brother, where there'd be things where he would do a trick, and there's always like, you'll see it with your kids too when you have kids, there's a neck snap. Like, did you see me? And it's like, dude, the kid is cool as shit, one of the best snowboarders in the world. And if I was following, or he'd be like, hey, can you watch this one? And when he stomped it, his neck would snap. Like, fuck, okay, cool, he saw it, you know? And it's like, it just makes you so proud, where you're like, oh, that's just our relationship. I think we were talking about Sean Palmer earlier, and I moved to Tahoe to do a semester at school. My mom's like, school's really important. You need to go to college. So I went to the junior college in Tahoe and lived with this group of girls, and they were all friends with Palmer and Yant and Halapoff. And I think it was a PSTA or something like that. My brother was 15 or 16. And we go to Palmer's house, and everyone's betting. Like big money, and like it's serious. Like they're like, hey, it's on. And we're like talking, we're like, you gotta bet Palmer, you gotta bet Palmer. And Jeff's like, no fucking way. Like, and we're like, we'll cover your bets. Like, we got you, just do it. So he walks over to Palmer, and he's like, Palm, I bet you $50 that I beat you in the pipe contest tomorrow. And we're just like, everyone's like, yeah. And Palmer's like, fuck yeah, I'll take your money. Like, if you want to go, like, it's on. Like, I don't care who you are, how old you are. And Palmer doesn't ride that good. Jeff rides really good. I think he landed like his first 7 in the pipe, and he beats Palm. And Palm is like pissed. I mean, like very emotion on the sleeve kind of dude. And my brother's just like so young, can't even read the room. And he just marches like straight over to Palm, and he's like, Palm, where's my $50? And I'm just like, oh, that was a little aggressive. And Palmer like reaches in, grabs $50, slaps it in his hands, and he said, it's okay to be cocky if you can back it up. And then like stomped off. And I was just like, fucking amazing.
Wow.
Yeah,
Legendary. Incredible. What about the years with Jeffy on Burton. I love, I'm more familiar with the video parts, but I feel like, Happy Hour and
Full Metal Edges.
Full Metal Edges. Oh
Big
my
Bear
God.
Rail.
Yeah.
That clip is like burned in my brain.
Incredible.
Just the style of all is like the ride outs and the in runs are so memorable.
How did it feel as an older brother watching all that stuff?
I mean, just very proud, right? I think too, the level of commitment and how much he cared about snowboarding, every little detail mattered, like hands, after bang, just passion, culture. When Volcom started expanding distribution into like places that he didn't want to be, he was pissed, like really upset. He just cared so much about it. Now, if he saw like some of the jumps that people build into rails, he would fucking lose his mind.
That was a huge thing back then. Like,
it was
him and his crew that were like no bigger than your boot, if not like nothing. Like just flat off the stairs, you better ollie.
It's just like, it's insane for me to see. Like now I'm like an old dude. I see something on Instagram and I want to comment, and it's like, who the fuck am I to like call you out for like your rail setup? But it's like when it's like 6 inches and you're just like hopping, it's like, why do you do that to yourself? You're risking everything on this sick fucking feature. Like, just ollie onto it. You're obviously good enough. Don't cheat it now. Like, you got the hard part. Just don't cheapen it. And like very passionate, like wore his heart on his sleeve. And this is like right before he passed, like he was just so proud. Like he had literally left it all on the line. Like that happy hour or the back in black part was just like, this is it. I am fully committed. This is the only thing. And where it's like his art was taking off and he was just like, no, that will come next. This is my commitment. I'm 100% in. And just being so broken and so battered and so happy, where it was just like, fuck, dude, you're doing it. And just so proud of you. And he was on the around the world trip, just had left here filming the rail stuff, was super hyped on it. Stop off in Japan, do the contest, and then he and Giggy were going to Europe to film like all their jump stuff. And, it's just like any other trip. It's great. It's really weird how things work, where it's like we road practice that day together, laughing, having fun, the head snapping, like, did you see that one? And it's a different where I'm like working at Volcom now, and we just had the most insane day together. And at the top of the course, everyone's there, all your peers and everyone. And like my fondest memory is he rides up, he slides in on his heel edge, and he's just like, I love you. I don't know what I'd do without you. And I was just like, fuck, man, I love you too. Where it's just like we were kind of doing different things, but we were still that close. And there, for things work in a mysterious way where I just didn't go out that night, where we should have been out partying. Like that's just everyone did. And I didn't go out that. I'm like, I'm not going to go. I'm just going to hang. We got, more going on this weekend. And I get the phone call, it's like pretty much a blur, right? So Giggy calls me and he's just like, hey, Jeff fell and hit his head. And I'm like, all right, well, like he'd like to do an act or like roll down the stairs. And I'm like, well, how bad is it? And he's like, it's pretty bad. And I'm like, all right, like, it's cool. He's like, we're coming to pick you up. And I'm like, oh, okay. So like we're going to the hospital, and I get up, I get dressed, I go downstairs, they pick me up and I get in the car and no one's talking. And I'm just like, okay, this is not good. This is like on another level of not good. And we get to the hospital and walk in and he's on the table and Bjorn is there holding his hand, praying for him. And a couple other guys, it's just kind of vague. And I'm just like, there's no fucking way. Like, what does this mean? Like language barriers of just like, are we communicating? Like, all right, we're in Japan, like Tokyo's here, the most advanced science, like what can we do? And he puts an X-ray in the projector of his head, and his head is crushed. And I'm just like, and they're still doing compressions on his chest, like trying to keep things going. Bjorn's holding his hand, just like, come on, Jeff, like, and the doctor's just like, well, what, like, and I'm like, he's gone. Like, to actually make that decision, and you're just like, oh, like, this is like my best friend, like, every day of our life, we have plan, like, it just, it like all happened so quick. And I kind of remember like running out of the room like a movie and just like burying my face in my hands and just like, there's just no way that this just happened, you know? So we kind of like stopped for a minute, and I'm just like, I'm out of here. Like, get me on the next plane home. I just want to be with my mom and my family. There's no other way around it. And Twitty's kind of making phone calls. He's just trying to figure out like what happened. What do we do? How can he take care of me? And I'm like, I'm out of here. And he's like, dude, you have to stay. Like, your family, the only way to get your brother home is for you to do this. And it was like, all right, like, let's do this. So, you know, you start the process, and I'm like a little embarrassed because Tristan had just died, Jamil, like those kind of things, and it was just such overwhelming emotions of like so many friends. And then the Rosignol team manager was there, and he had just dealt with Tristan, and he came up to me and he's just like, hey, be prepared. This is going to be super gnarly. These people deal with death every day. They're not nice. And it was probably some of the best advice, because it just like threw a layer of like thick skin of like, all right, here you go. This isn't going to be fun. And then it's like, all right, be proud. This is like your brother. You have to do this. And it turned out to be amazing. Like, identifying the body as flowers and candles in like a beautiful setting, right? Where it was just like everything was comforting and warm, and the people were just so kind, and the culture there was insane. And they got to put him into a casket, and I'm just like, hey, he was super claustrophobic. Just please don't cover his face, you know? And so we get there and we show up for the cremation the next day, and the car pulls up and they're pushing the casket across the parking lot, and there's a window on the casket that's open so his face isn't covered. You're just like, all right, like, these are the wins. These are the moments like that, like, everyone's looking out for me, you know? And the cremation process and everything in Japanese culture was just so unbelievable. It wasn't, no one was like selling me an overpriced urn, you know, where it was, and it's really interesting how the ashes come there. Here, it's dust. There, it's not. Like, it's, I mean, not to be, but it's like the bones. I mean, it's him. It's like, it's actually pretty intense, but almost beautiful in the same sense. And, you know, like, Twitty had my back. I think people were nervous that like I was just going to drink myself silly through it. And none of us drank. I mean, we smoked a shit ton of cigarettes and powered through it. And it was such a healing process for me to do that, to get through that. I mean, just jumping back, you never want to call your parents and tell them that your brother's passed. You know, to call my mom and go like, hey, you need to stop the car. Jeff's gone. Call my dad. Hey, you need to stop. Jeff's gone. Like, they were just such intense moments, but I don't know. I think with the support from the right people, it was just like, hey, this is part of your healing process immediately. You know, where there were a lot of people that Jeff just never came home. And I think that's really hard when there was a lot of closure. There were a lot of decisions that I needed to make to get through that. And, you know, you get through it, and the people that show up for you, you know, Andrew Mariner and Yale Miller, like two of our best friends at the time, are at the airport in LAX waiting to get off the plane, you know? And it's like, there was like a selfishness where I was just trying to process it so much that like I wasn't the only one that lost my best friend. That Jeff was a brother to way more people than me, a very open heart, and just took care of so many people. And I think back to it of just like, it was just so rough for so many people. And you get home and you plan the service, and walking into the service, like thinking it was going to be the worst day of my life, was probably one of the best days of my life. You know, it was something that I was just like dreading, and there was just going to be like no way that I could get through it. And Salima showed up and, you know, kicked it off and got people talking, and people told great stories. And it truly was a celebration. And there was like a massive fear that I would forget him, or that people would forget, or I wouldn't recognize his voice, and like we've talked about everything, things change. You know, it's like, I don't necessarily cry about it, but I think about him all the time. He makes me happy. I see him in my kids every day. Like Jeffrey has looks that are so Jeff, and Spencer has looks that are so Jeff, where I'm so proud of him. I love him so much. I miss him every day. I think that the biggest kind of regret of it all is like not raising kids together. I mean, we always talked about like what it would be like when we have kids, and that's tough, but there are things that you find ways to like help heal yourself. I think that, you know, we've talked about it. Like Jamie was going through some serious shit, and Jamie helped me as much as I helped him. Where like I had always taken care of my brother. Like that was like one of my, as much as I didn't want to, I was very proud of taking it, you know? And Jamie and I had been so close, and he had given so much to me. And, you know, when he was going through his shit, he reached out, and it was just like, fuck, it was just something where I was like, fuck yeah, brother, like whatever it takes. And I made decisions that could have affected my career where it was just like, all right, hey, you're 100% my focus. Like, let's get you sober. Let's get you detox. Like, take him back to my house with Sarah and I living together. And then it's just like, holy shit, like this is getting worse than it's getting better. And rolling through all of that, and, you know, where we're at today, like he calls me this morning, like, are you ready? And Thalo's running around in the background. And it's just like, it's like a true, genuine brother moment where we share our families together, and we share our bad days, and we celebrate our good days. And Jeff Pincero's the same way, where it's like, he's a genuine brother. He helps me out about everything in my life. When you are struggling at work, he's the one that I call. And there's the Brian Hendersons that I treat like a brother, where we're raising our kids together. And that brotherly, you know, stuff doesn't end. And I live a lot of my relationships and things that I feel like that I could be missing out with my brother. My friends really lift me up.
Fucking beautiful. Wow. Beautiful, Billy. That's amazing. And I kind of want to lean into one thing you said too, because I thought it was interesting on the golf course this morning. You were talking about helping out Jamie, and you mentioned kind of like at the moment he needed help. You needed somebody to help, like that older brother role.
Yeah.
And like the timing of that and everything.
Yeah. And I don't even know if I've ever like told Jamie that. I mean, it just kind of comes out when you like really start thinking that he's given me so much on so many levels. Like I really wanted to talk specifically about this stuff, and I'm just like, fuck, I don't want to cry anymore. Like I want to celebrate it, and I want to speak well, and I don't want to get caught up in it. And yeah, thank you guys for making it comfortable. Mm-hmm. It's so funny. When you invited me, I was fucking nervous. like way more and like even on the plane I was like, holy shit, like am I really doing this? Like I kind of have a map of what I want to talk about. We've barely talked about any of that. And it's been great. I think you get an opportunity, like I said, like I kind of felt like this was going to be a closure moment for me. It's not. I love it more than anything. I love sharing the stories. I'm never stopping snowboarding, but
speaking about Jeffy too, I remember you were telling me specifically that one of the reasons, if not the main reason you lived in Mammoth was because of that JLA skate park, the Volcom Brothers skate park that Billy spearheaded.
The skate park's been a huge part of my life and the community in Mammoth. I was there before I flew out here. Like, it's a hub every summer. Even the spring, people are down there shoveling. Like, what you guys created, and in Jeff's honor in Mammoth, is just such a special, timeless place. And I thank you for that. And would also like to know, like, what was that process like? I know it was pretty loose. It's a world-renowned skate park. And, yeah, people travel from all over the world to come check this place out. And having Jeff's name right up there in front on the ledge. And just what was that process like? And how did you get that going? And what was, like, the main purpose? Why a skate park?
I mean, it's pretty impressive because my brother wanted to start a skate park a long time ago, like when he was super young, like the first kind of go around for public skate parks. I mean, he wasn't even a teenager. I don't think it was kind of that era of skateboarding where he actually collected signatures and went to the town council and was like, we want to build a skate park. And they're like, all right, that's cute, but no, we're not building a skate park. And then Mike McCarley came to town, worked at Storm Riders, was a good friend of everyone at the shop, and he kind of was spearheading the Shady Rest Park. So my brother kind of helped within that process of trying to get it, and they did all this groundwork, and they were really excited that there was going to be a skate park in Mammoth. And at the last minute, they said something along the lines that you can't build anything over 18 inches. So it was just like, wah, wah, wah. But I mean, that was the first thing, and people were really doing their best to try and get something built. And when my brother passed, I mean, my mom built that skate park. She knew that Jeff's commitment to community and was a passionate skateboarder. That was what she wanted to do. That was like her give back. And we started the process. My stepdad worked at the community foundation that did all the fundraising for the college. So we had some ideas and some partners on what we needed to do for fundraising to get it going, and started searching for land and started raising money. And it got to the point where someone at Mammoth knew Warren Miller, and Warren Miller had built Orcas Island. So one of the first things in the process is we flew to Orcas Island, dropped off at Warren Miller's house on the dock, and he takes us over to the skate park, and we have a look around. He kind of tells us what they did to build it and what they did to start it. And the best piece of advice we got from him was put a hole in the ground. And once you get that hole in the ground, people don't like a hole in the ground. They want to finish it. So the people that don't, you know, people will start volunteering. The people that own the sandwich shop will donate food for people that are working there, and the community will come out, right? So we talked with the ski area. They were a huge supporter. Rusty Gregory was awesome. It was just like, hey, whatever you need from us, we got your back equipment, that kind of stuff. So we got that green light. And then Danny Rossier, who was the guy that had cut all the snowboard pipes for when Jeff was competing at Mammoth, was like, I'll drive the loader. So he was in there, you know, I'm sure therapeutic for him, like processing something like that, knowing a young kid in town. So he did all the dirt work. And, you know, we hired the guys at Grindline, and everyone was like, hey, this can be an art project, you know, and wherever the ground takes us, it will take us. And that's what it did. There were some difficult moments. Like the groundbreaking where we actually did the shovel and the dirt thing was probably one of the hardest days of my life. And maybe was because it snuck up on me, with coming home from Japan, super gnarly service. But when you're trying to put your life back together and then you do something like that where it's pretty monumental, was heavy for me. But that thing took off like wildfire. The community dove in. Sizer is amazing. And the community takes care of it. There's no graffiti. They do a good job, managing the temperament at the park and, managing the scooters or the bikers and when to say something and when not to say something that is truly something. It's a weird place for me to go where it feels like, it can feel like a cemetery sometimes, which is, it's an interesting experience for me to go there. And there's times where I just like to go down there in the morning and I can walk around the park and no one's there. And it's just like I have a nice little moment. And then to go there too and see everyone enjoying it. You can drive by a million baseball fields and there's never anyone there. There's always someone at the skate park. So with the JLA Foundation, we still, raise money to make sure that we keep the maintenance up on that. And it's actually pretty cool. Spencer's taking some initiative this week. Some of the, the railing metal artwork that Dustin has built. Spencer's taking the lead on that and meeting with Dustin, and they're going to plan out everything that needs to be welded. And she's managing the budgets and kind of carrying it on for him, which makes me super proud. So, throughout that whole process, we've added on. I mean, it was pretty big and intimidating, and we raised money and, added a little bit more of a street course and then a little brother skate park where kids can actually learn how to drop in and do that. And then the guys that really enjoyed building the park wanted to build that little kidney bowl in the back that's like a legit pool. And that was the most labor that I put into it, like where we went up there and was pouring concrete and banging out dry hoses because the mix wasn't mixed right. And it's actually pretty cool because there's 3 handprints in the cement at the park from the kids that day. So it's a very special place. And to give something back like that, I mean, my mom crushed it on that thing. I think that the community that is there, Steve Clausen, the guys at Wave Rave do a good job of supporting it. And the thing's not going anywhere. It's 60,000 square feet.
That's incredible. We've talked about people that have lost close ones on the show before, and we get like a lot of messages from our listeners about it. And I think it'd be interesting if you have anybody, there's somebody listening that's probably going through something or recently or processing. Do you have anything that helped you get through that process?
It's relying on your friends. We've kind of talked about it and thought about it. It's really hard to help someone that doesn't want help, but people want to help you.
Yep.
And just the snowboard community was insane for me. So when Jeff dies, I come back and the whole snowboard community lived in Encinitas. So I moved to Encinitas, moved in with Sue Izzo and everyone at Transworld. It was like Shem and Embry and Sipnewski and Todd and Lindsay. And there was just so many people there that I relied on through that process where it just wasn't going to go away. And, that's where I met Savina Kelly. And it's like there's people like that you have, when you have a bond and it clicks, it's really comforting. And you don't even have to talk about anything. Just to be in the same room as someone that's like been through it, it's just like, cool. Like, don't ask me anything. I don't want to talk about it. And then sometimes you do talk about it. And meeting Olivia when she was 3 years old, and we used to watch cartoons together, and to see her grow into the woman that she has been amazing. And the support that everyone has for each other, there's I mean, that's what's happening. And I think the message that everyone's trying to communicate through this mental health thing is that just ask for help. It's there, and your friends are so close, and sometimes you don't realize how bad they want to help you. And when you love someone and you care about them, it actually, it works out really well. I think that, you know, someone like that is, and sometimes I feel like I could have done a better job with like Jeff's best friends, like Yale or, you know, Stephen Brown, Giggy, like those people, those were his best friends. Like he was my brother. Like he had friends that he was really connected with. And through that process, like Giggy and I have become best friends. And I mean, our run at Volcom was something where I think that Giggy was really helping me through that process, where there was like such a path that he and Jeff were on. And it's just like, all right, let's do something fucking cool. Let's make the outerwear. Let's put you on the snowboards. Like what can we do? And those relationships are really supportive, and they last a lifetime.
Hey, Silk, new Patreon member, actually, Gigi Ruff.
Yeah.
He signed up to support the show. Appreciate you, Gigi. He asked the question for this episode. Silk, do you want to tee that up?
Yeah, thanks for asking a question, Gigi. Gigi says, ask Billy about the 9191 World Tour itinerary he put Mini Bike and me on. A piece of art itself, 11 pages long. No time for slipping any checked bags. The world in a true hitchhiker's manner was obligatory. We did it in 28 days, 19 cities, 10 countries.
It was mental.
That's fucked up.
It was, I think it was back at that time where it was culture. I thought Gigi was a rock star. Jake was a rock star. The movie itself was insane. My wife had worked on the Tony Hawk tour, and she had one of their production books that was beautiful, and she had shared it with me, and I was like, I got to do this for Gigi's movie. And I took so much time. How many pages did he say it was?
11 pages.
It was like this ridiculous book, and it was every second of every day of just like, here's your flights, here's your meet and greets. And it was pretty funny because I had never done a tour like that. And starting in California and going east is the wrong way to go because you lose time. You don't gain any time. So we were just on this brutal run, and I did the U.S. tour with them. And we were partying our brains out, just like way too much fun. And I hope that this isn't too embarrassing for Gigi. But so we finished in Montreal. We had a big night. I'm like, I'm done. I can't go back. And Gigi, we got to get you up early in the morning. You got to sign these posters for these accounts before we go to the airport. And I wake up in the morning, and our room is frigid icebox. And I look over at Gigi, and he's just laying on the bed in his boxers, sweating bullets. And I'm just like, this is not good. Like Jake and Gigi were just torturing themselves on this trip. And roll him out of bed. We hadn't missed a flight. And I'm like, this is the one that you can't miss. You guys are going to Korea from Montreal. And he signs all the posters. We get in the cab, and the guy's speeding there, and it feels like literally the wheels are coming off. The car is shaking and jumping, but we don't have enough time to stop and get to it. And we make the flight and send them off their way, and that was just a third of the trip. And then they did all of Asia and Europe.
Nar.
So impressive.
Wow. True professional. All right. You know what it's a good time for, Silk?
Feel like it might be about time for Name That Video part.
Should we get a smelling salt?
Yeah.
Time to. We've been going for a hot
I love
minute
any
here.
smelling salt.
Yeah. These are good on the line for racing moto.
Remember at Washougal, I offered the dude the smelling salt, and he was like...
The guy next to me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was like, oh, what the hell are these guys doing?
He was not into it.
Oh, yeah.
That one hit hard.
Yeah, I went a little deep on that one.
Oh, we're back. We're fucking so back. Okay. All right. What's your confidence level here?
0.
0. Love that. Wow. Respectable.
Not bad.
Well, I mean, what's crazy about it is that, I mean, we'll see what you pick, but you could pick a movie that I made and listen to the song 10,000 times and watched every clip 10,000 times and probably not get it right now.
Well, let's see what happens.
Also, von dort, wo ich herkomme, nach einer Sage.
It's the opening of Escramble.
It's Escramble.
Gigi.
Yeah, it's Gigi.
Well, his voice gives it away.
Yeah, yeah, I know. That's such a meatball.
That wasn't even a song.
That might be the biggest meatball I've ever done. But you know what I realized? I wouldn't. Well, I'll say this:
a rebate or something.
I went on this show. It comes out after this, and I didn't get them all. They did a bunch of, and when you don't get it right, it kind of sucks. You know, it's more fun when you get it. So congratulations, you won.
I'll be delivering.
Oh yeah, Silk's gonna deliver. You got a bomb hole prize pack. Pashley sent us a North Face bag. We put some bomb hole patches on it. Good for the gear. You know, you're taking the kids boarding.
Yeah, beach bag too.
Beach bag. You put the golf bag. You can put your golf attire. There's bomb hole stuff in there. You can put it on the ground now. We don't need to keep that thing on the table. But thank you, Pashley, for sending that. Congratulations, you.
Episode 198.
198.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good number.
198. Okay, and part 2 of Name That Video part is for the listeners. If you guys know what song this is, comment on the photo of Billy on Instagram, and that's where we pick our winner. We have a new sticker that says, I won Name That Video part, and all I got was this stupid sticker. Very prestigious. Okay, here we go.
Peaceful. Peaceful. Peaceful.
Okay, thank you guys for playing Name That Video part. Okay, we got a guest question from none other than Kurt Dog, a.k.a. Curtis Cizik.
Let's give him a womp, womp, womp.
You want to? Should we give him an air horn?
Yeah.
I don't want to give him an air horn. You know what I'm going to give him? Give him one of these. And I'll give him one of these.
Oh, he's good.
Okay, let me find. Okay, Kurt Dog, here we go.
Yo, Brother Bill, Curtis here. A couple questions. Yes. First question, would love to know how you got arrested in Japan. That's a pretty good story. And second question, you've obviously done a lot for the snowboard world and made a lot of snowboarders like myself, their dreams become reality. And I guess I just wanted to know what kept you in the game for so long and doing all the stuff you did. All right. Love you tons. Hope this is a great episode. I can't wait to listen to it. Bye.
Thanks, Cheese Bump. Let's start with the industry part.
We're going to start with the, okay.
And we'll end with we'll end with that. I think what kept me in it for so long is just like everyone that we worked with were just such great, genuine kids, so many different backgrounds. I was talking with Ryan Boyes, just trying to run through the list of do you have an old team list? This is when I didn't want to forget anyone or leave anyone out. And then you look at it, it's over 50 kids that you've worked with. And every relationship was so special. And everyone brought a uniqueness to the program. And our program was celebrating that. So many different characters where I'm like Breezy. Breezy is just such an amazing cat, but not who I thought was right for Volcom. And Boys is like, dude, he's totally right. And he was. His dedication and his hard work was amazing. And all the kids that had come through, it was just everything was a new experience. And how can you tell their story? I think that that what I was really excited about through those times was really having the athletes. How do we improve their story, not them telling our story? And I think that is something that's really important is with the individuality and the culture of it is the more you celebrate everyone's differences, the better your brand is. There's more connections. It doesn't become homogenized. It's like different. It's fun. It's engaging. The kids, we were talking about it. There was a photo on the stairs. We did a Grom photo shoot, and it was Blum, Magoon, Louis Vito, Marvin, Curtis, and Tyler Flanagan. And they're like preteens, it was like everyone was so young, and to see them and where they go and what they've accomplished, and all of them were so different, but shredders, and how you could kind of tell those stories. And I think, with Jamie and Gooch, like growing out of your prime is really, really difficult. There were times where I think Jamie starts slipping it's easier to show up and not ride. Everyone has super high expectations. Like when you're Jamie Lynn or Terrier and you show up at Mount Hood in the 90s, people want to see some shit. They don't want to see you like playing around and fucking off in the mini pipe. Like they want to see Jamie do a cab 9 and they want to see Terrier do a huge McTwist. Those things are difficult. And like, how do you support them and get them through that phase where, one of the things I'm most proud of is Brian Aguchi, where it was the thing, the guy's cutting sushi and doesn't know if he's going to be able to keep his house. And it's just like, hey, let's fire this back up again. There's value in you. I see value in you. And we do it. We're marketing him. It's going. He's riding the boards. And he calls me like, I don't know if sheepishly is the right word, but he kind of calls me and it's a little weird. And he's like, I got an offer from Arbor. Like thinking that, and I'm like, no, dude, this is it. This is what we wanted. Like, you're fucking back. Like, this isn't charity. Like, no one's doing this. It's like, you rip, you have a story to tell, and there's an audience that wants to hear it. So it's just, so there were a lot of wins in that where it was, working with the Groms and trying to build a foundation for them and building a path past your 30s that, Jamie and Gooch can continue on to do, and pushing forward with like Pat and Giggy and making films. I think, through that process, it's not a regret because the timing wasn't right, but there's times I really wish we would have made a Bjorn movie, but it was just like there wasn't timing that was right. A Scramble was probably...
Scramble's kind of it.
But I would have loved to have branded it, with that lineage of Volcom and Subject Hawkinson. A Bjorn movie would have been great. Into a Giggy movie, into a Pat Moore movie would have been special. But, I hadn't made a movie yet, so I really wanted to get one under my belt. But I think... those were things that always kept me moving, is that the industry was growing. There was a path for Jamie and Gooch, the same that it was for Blum, and to see Blum here, still holding down a career that's extended a lot longer than people thought. It's really cool. And I don't think it'll stop, because there's just so much more opportunities with the kids snowboarding. There's more stories that need to be told past being a pro snowboarder.
Mm-hmm. Part 2, we can't let you dodge this. This is
what
Japan.
happened in Japan?
Yeah, the Japan story.
I got no problem dodging this one. This one's awesome. Morrow team, Roppongi, big shabu shabu dinner. We'd been shopping, crushing beers all day, and it's the night's over. We're walking back to the hotel, and I have like this shopping bag. I probably bought some headphones or something. And we turn the corner at the stoplight, and there's all these taxi cars lined up, tip to tail. And I go, Eric, hold this bag, and I just go running onto the hood, onto the trunk, off the trunk, onto the hood, run over 3 of them. And I thought it was the funniest thing in the world. And I'm in the street just holding my sides, laughing. And the cab driver jumps out of his car. He's got handcuffs, and he handcuffs me to the bike rack. And I'm like, oh shit, like this is not good. Like a real quick reality check where there was a point where it's like you just thought you could get away with anything in Japan, and it was quickly not getting away with anything in Japan. And got arrested, taken to jail. And Shige, who was like the marketing manager who took insane care of us throughout the years in Japan, he jumps in the cop car with me because he's like, I don't know where they're going. We'll never find him. He'll never be able to handle it on his own. So he leaves like Todd and Eric and everyone on the side of the road. They're like, how do we get back to our hotel, right? So I get thrown in jail and I'm tripping. I'm just like, I don't know how I'm going to be here for. I think I'd probably watching like Broke Down Palace 2 weeks before. I'm like, my life's over. Can't sleep, lights on, Japanese jail, and kind of goes for about 24 hours, and I'm thinking that I'm going to be there another day. I got a phone call. I called the embassy, and I called Joe Winiger, and he doesn't answer, or I talk to the embassy, and then I'm like, hey, call Joe Winiger and tell him that I've been arrested in Japan. I'm okay right now, but if you don't hear from me in 2 days, then tell my mom. Like, then call like the cavalry. So it gets to the point where I've been in there for a while. The food's super gnarly. It's fish, boiling hot water. By the time it cools off, they take it away from you. And I'm just like, this is not going to end good. I'm in a lot of trouble. And it's like right about that afternoon where I'm like, if I'm not getting out, I'm in here for another night, and super bummed. And then they call my number, but I don't, it's not in English. So everyone in my cell is like pointing at me, and I'm like excited to get out of there. And they open the doors, and I think it's going to be Todd and Shige, and it's not. It's Mr. Hossie, who owns the entire distribution company, like for the whole sporting network. So like they didn't just do snowboards, it was archery and all of this. And in Japan, the older you are, the more respect they have. So if they would have just sent anyone else for me, I probably would have been in there for weeks. And Mr. Hossie shows up, and I mean, I only know who he is by name because everyone had so much respect for him. And then when it was there, it was obviously him. And all the cops that were there from the night before were just, the night before, they were just like dicks, straight-faced, scary motherfuckers. And now they're like all snowboard dude, like waving their hands like surfers and shit. And we get on the train, and Mr. Hossie was like, you cost me a lot of money today. And I'm like, I'll see you in Las Vegas next week at the trade show, and I'll pay you back your money. And then I went to the Nippon Open, did the best I'd ever done in the contest. I think I won $4,000, and it went exactly like from this hand to them. So didn't even get to spend $1 of that. That was awesome. Yeah, that was the Japan going to jail story.
Incredible. Love that.
I think so. Yeah, like when it came. So then we fly to Vegas. I get the rest of the money. I go to pay for it. Mr. Hossie speaks perfect English, and he's not speaking in English anymore. And I'm like, oh, fuck. And then the interpreters says, you bailed the country before your final court date. So then I was totally tripping, and the end bill, so I think it was like another $4,000 because I had to pay for their cars to get fixed, and then 2 of the cab drivers were privately owned. So I had to each give them, they got 2 weeks vacation on me.
Damn. Holy shit. So you and Hossie good, or where are you guys at?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I mean, the first time going back to Japan was a little nerve-wracking when everyone's like, you bailed the country, you know, when you're like slapping your passport at immigration, you're like, I hope this all works out.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Cool. Another note I have here is Volcom, you know, the true to this tagline I think would be really interesting to elaborate on.
Yeah, true to this. I brought it. Excuse me. I was I had asked Blum if he had seen this, and this is my brother's original sketchbook, which could be fun for you to flip through.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the original drawing.
No fucking way. Blum, you got this tattooed on your chest, basically.
I do, and don't you have it tattooed on?
Yeah, I got it tattooed on my leg.
Cool.
So when I left Volcom, my last day at Volcom was pretty rad. Like we went and had lunch, and then we started tearing into beers, and we called Ariana and was just like, find the graphic, email it to us. We're gonna get tattoos. So Barraza, Pat Field, and I got the I'm not new to this, I'm true to this.
Amazing. And then Volcom I feel like
Volcom kind of jacked it.
I do know, ran with it, right?
I was in a sauna recently with some Volcom team riders, not too recently, but they saw my Jeffy tattoo and were like, "You have a Volcom tattoo?" And I was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! Like, let's know your history here."
Yeah. I mean, I think that it obviously came from that sketchbook where it was just like he was so passionate. The simplicity of the drawing, just with the snowboard and the single line, is very organic and genuine. So we had the opportunity to put it on some T-shirts and some hoodies and stuff, and it was really cool just to like tell that story. And they've continued on with it. It was, yeah, something I'm proud of. It was. Yeah, we'll leave it at that.
This is incredible.
Yeah.
There's so much good shit in here. Wow. Talking to Jamie, you know, he had some interesting stuff to say. Basically, he was like, Billy was the best team manager I've ever had. He's sensitive to what a team rider needs because he was a team rider himself. Huge boxes. And I'm always sitting here dissecting, like, all right, how the fuck did this person sitting in this chair get so good at snowboarding? Like, how the fuck that's what I'm trying to figure out a lot of times. But I'm curious, like, on the industry side of things, what do you think the ingredients are to being a great marketing manager or team manager?
You have to put snowboarding first. If you do the right thing for snowboarding, you do the right thing for your team riders, it's the right thing for your company.
Wow.
Silk, you make a note of that? Sorry. Simple, elegant, perfect.
And that was it. And I told myself that, and I think Jeff was a huge... Snowboarding had changed our perspective and our trajectory, right? We just went from little kids in a small town where you just didn't know what was going to happen, and it opened up such a huge world so fast that you took ownership of it. Like, this is mine, and I want to do everything in my power to give back to it. And that was, I mean, being a professional snowboarder is insanely gnarly. And the level of confidence that you need to have is out of this world. And, you know, when you roll into some injuries and you don't have that confidence, snowboarding gets fucking scary. When you're standing on top of a jump and you're not 100%, I mean, that was one of the things that I was most impressed by was Bjorn is fucking mental. I mean, there would be things where we'd be out filming and I'm like, no, dude, do not fucking go down that. I think you're going to die and I don't want to watch it. So you have that running in your head, but you say nothing because you don't want to ding that confidence 1%. Like, I don't want to put any doubt in that guy's mind, and he is 100%. So, you know, learning that and just making that commitment to those guys. I loved it. Just to be able to be a part of it, open a door. There were things where, I mean, the snowboards came to life because I wanted to support our riders on a level with a head-to-toe deal. And I couldn't do that. There just weren't partners that could compete. And I think Boys and I were sitting around and we ran this ad of Marvin, sick ad, and it was just a 2-page option ad. And it's like, wait a minute, like, we got Marvin. He's fucking crushing it. We're fully committed to him. How do we tell like our story? And you know, that leads into a giggy where it's like, hey, if we're gonna pony up the cash, we need to be able to put a full head to toe deal together, and we can't find a partner to do that. So let's do it. So, you know, putting those head to toe deals together, supporting those guys 100%. And then that led to the IP2 project, where it was just like, hey, let's just make your own parts. This is a great opportunity for a web series, and, you know, let you guys have your input on it. I mean, some of it was a little more extreme than maybe it should have been, but a lot of learning experiences and being able to take risk.
Where'd your creative process come from with like coming up with the boards, going head to toe, the IP2 projects, just all these little things to really build stories around the team? Was that having a good group of people in the office with like you and boys to spitball ideas off of, or would it be coming from your marketing, your CMO, or where was the direction coming from?
I mean, Volcom was a really special place in the fact that through the designers, Abron, Danny Geary to Pat Field, and then as sales managers with Dutch and Brad Albin, it was such a tight team. Like, I haven't seen sales, marketing, and product work together like we worked together. We were on a little bit of an island within Volcom with just a huge support system. So it's like, you know, you had all the HR, accounting, that stuff on the back end, but we didn't have to deal with anything or think about it or touch it. And we could focus on it. And I think that the gap to Burton was so big. There was just so much room for growth. So it's like, what can we do to compete at the highest level? And if we were coming up with like good ideas and we'd brainstorm them, do our homework and present them to Wooly and Troy. And if it was a good idea, it got greenlit and the movies happened. And, you know, the Giggy contract was a huge deal. And then like Pat Moore was a huge deal. And Gooch Bryan was a huge deal. And it really set that up, you know, to go where I wanted it to go. It was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's interesting too, thinking about you guys going head to toe with the boards. I feel like the effect it had on people, like people were so horny to get a Volcom board, but you couldn't buy it. I'd love to hear you just elaborate on the logic on that too.
Well, it came from the stickers. It came from the very first thing. You couldn't get a Volcom Stone sticker. So that demand was easily like a great lesson in creating demand. And I mean, we didn't
just
really...
for the listeners, basically like only people that got Volcom stickers were team riders, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You could only have stickers if you were a team rider.
Yeah.
And seeing how powerful that was and how Troy and Wooly held the line. It's like, no one gets them. It's like only team. So being able to take that train of thought, and then it got to the thing too, if you saw someone with a Volcom Stone, you could approach them. You knew that they rode for them, or someone knew someone, and how we could recreate that with the snowboards, I think inspired it a lot. Of one, we just like, if we're going to pay for it, let's take that branding spot, and let's go after it. I think, you know, one of the prouder moments is when you watch the X Games, and if I remember right, like Scotty and Elena both win X Games on Volcom boards. That went from like a small marketing idea to something that was something that I was super proud of.
Cool. It's fucking interesting. Yeah. It's like, yeah, that's such an interesting one. Like, it's genius in hindsight thinking about it. But if you're like, you know, trying to explain that as like a line item, you know, and we're going to make these products, they're expensive product.
They're not for sale.
We're not going to sell them. We're also not going to sell them, you know, but it's genius. It's fucking genius.
And our team riders are going to cost more money.
Yeah, and we're going to pay them more. And we're also not going to sell the product they're on. Yeah.
But I think too, that going back to that, there was an era where I was doing my best to pay them as much as I possibly could. It wasn't cutting budgets, or it was just like, these guys are awesome. How can I do it? I mean, on the flip side of that, I mean, one of the hardest things is to cut someone. And it was not fun. I mean, like we cut Chris Brown and it did not go the way that I wanted it to. And I mean, I heard him on another podcast kind of roasting me, and it was just like, fuck, that sucks, because we had a lot of fun and I obviously didn't handle it well, and I'm not proud of it. But when you're 25 years old and I mean, I'm older than that at that point when that happened, but you're on this trajectory and HR's not doing it with you. No one's coaching it with you. It's just like, hey, we got cuts, you got to make them. And you're making huge mistakes on stuff that's like really sensitive. Like, that was terrible. I mean, letting go of Aero Nimala, like, massive bummer, where it was just like, we strung them along and I was doing everything I can to like squeeze it into this budget. And in snowboarding, to work on a fiscal calendar where everything starts January 1 is just horrific, where it's like I'm pushing and fighting, and it's just like, hey, it's in the budget, but like you're on the line, all the other contracts are signed. If I get the money, you're in. If I don't get the money, you're out. And we didn't get the money, and I got to cut them in January. Like that, and I didn't do a good job at those things, you know? So it's really easy when it's just like, I love snowboarding, do the right thing for the sport, and then you get into these positions where it's like, hey, it's not just 100%, 40% growth every time. Like, we got to reel it in, and you have to manage it, and there are too many team riders that those decisions are really shitty. And I wish I could do that differently, or, you know, if there would have been a little bit more, hey, this is how we're going to get rid of our team riders, you know? So, but all learning experiences, it's like, those are things that I still think about today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting topic. You know, somebody from your perspective who's been in those budget meetings, who's allocated those budgets, and the place that we're in, a lot of topic on this show, people talk about like how much snowboarders are getting paid, and it's hard for a lot of snowboarders to make a living, and there's a lot of talent, and there's not that many spots on teams, and I wonder, where do you feel like we're at in terms of like supporting pro snowboarders, and do you have any thoughts on that?
I think the biggest opportunity, if you wanted to be a pro snowboarder, is YouTube. Like, I watch a shit ton of golf YouTube, and what they're doing there is impressive, and guys are getting paid, and there's really good storytelling, and there's a massive opportunity in that space to take control of it. When I look back at the history of it, where Volcom was a media company, like what put Volcom on the map was their content. And then from there, Grenade content put them on the map. Friends, content, and they had the YouTube channel, where it's like, if they would have just focused on YouTube instead of headphones, I think that they could be a dominant player. That I think that there's a huge space. I mean, if I was a snowboarder, what Good does, Foreplay, Grant Horvat, I mean, there's just a whole, I mean, and now it's even translated into Bryson DeChambeau, where it's like, the guy's making, he's one of the best players in the world, and he considers himself a YouTuber. I mean, I also think it's interesting, and I didn't know this. Do you follow the Good guys at all?
I don't know.
Definitely worth checking it out, because they've been in the YouTube game. They're crushing it beyond anyone else. But I didn't know it. Their CEO is like Simon Cowell. It's a boy band where he found a kid that was doing trick shots and put them together, and they make YouTube videos, and it's consistent, and they're turning out a bunch of content that I think that it really works. And for the action sports industry that was so content driven and so youth driven, to be missing this huge component of taking control. Because with the YouTube golf, it's super attainable. It's not the hardest courses on the hardest day. There's all these like games and adventures, and they make it relatable. Like Foreplay does this thing called Breaking 90 with this dude Trent. I mean, he's just so normal, so average, and it's just a series about him playing the same golf that you and I play, and it's super entertaining. So how you can tell more? There's a platform to tell authentic stories that really work, and finding that, I see that as a huge untapped opportunity in the space.
I like that, wise words. Blum, how's that YouTube channel going for you?
Oh, it's so good, dude.
Yeah, is it booming?
Yeah, that's right up my alley. It's launching soon.
Yeah, launching soon.
Yeah, but when I think about it, there's also too of not putting a square peg in a round hole. Where at Sims, it could be a great opportunity to go like, all right, well, who are the kids that we're working with? We know how to film. We know how to edit. We just need to make sure that we make someone that can talk on camera. They can introduce the projects. There's...
You know what the hard part?
Right,
the hard part with YouTube in some ways, though, it's finding the right characters, because like I think there's a lot of hesitation in YouTube being primarily occupied by cornballs. And I think that we care so deeply about our culture, whatever. Like, we want it to be cool. We want it to be cool. We don't want it to be cringy. So I think, like you're saying, there is a huge opportunity to
but
create
just, I mean,
these.
to even like run it back. So when I first started snowboarding, shooting and filming was lame.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't want to shoot, like, you were there to snowboard. Snowboarding was first. Photos were second, right? And then it got to the point where filming was like, cool, that's what you did. That's what you wanted to do. That was the grind. That's what you got excited about. And social showed up, and everyone's like, oh, everyone just wants me to post to social. Now everyone's posting to social. And like, just what is the next thing, and how does that keep evolving?
Yep.
And I think that that's where it comes to too. It's you find the right kid that grows up in it. I mean, who would be a good example of it? Like, I'm trying to think of someone who's like outgoing. I mean, even like young Magoon, right?
Oh my God.
Like, if you could give someone a platform where it's just like, hey, we're going to tap into you, tell your story. We got all the back end. We're going to do all the edit. Because I think that that's like with the, the YouTubers that are trying to do it now are doing it all. They're filming themselves. They're editing it. They're trying to be consistent. Like, that's a gnarly grind. You almost kind of need the Simon Cowell, like, hey, you be the face of this. We got all this back end work. Let's focus on you on camera and not cheeseball it up. Like, let's make
Keep it
this
authentic.
genuine.
Yeah.
And I think, do you follow Foreplay Pod?
Not too much, no.
So I think even just like checking out how they're a podcast show and how they've tapped in videos and they've engaged everyone. And I mean, the space was actually pretty cool too, because they were super competitive for a long time, where they were all competing, no one was filming, and some like switch flipped, and now they're all on each other's channels, promoting across channels, building their audiences. And it's a huge thing in golf, where golf is very traditional, very old school, very proper, and the YouTube thing is coming in hot. Like, now there's tournaments. There's a tournament in a month for YouTubers on a PGA course on the Wednesday before the tournament.
Damn.
So like, content creators at the highest level, and they're out there telling authentic stories where there's a real opportunity. It doesn't happen overnight. Like, you got to find the right people, but with a little bit of support, you get some kids that want to talk, they get comfortable, and it's not cheesy. And it becomes the new standard, and there's more opportunities for sponsorship. The club thing was insane, where it was just like PGA Tour guys, that's who got sponsored. And it was like a light switch. TaylorMade, Callaway, everyone just went out and sponsored all the best YouTubers. And they're all talking about it. And, they went from cheesy deals to Callaway and TaylorMade, where I think that stuff comes and kind of puts you in a position to offer more to your sponsors of just like, how do you break into that next? What is next? And we've been such good content creators in a youth-driven sport, and we've missed a lot of opportunities with the tools that the youth is super tapped into.
Do you think snowboarding's beyond a youth-driven sport now? Like, being a first-generation pro now that snowboarding is so young, but now that it's getting older, do you think the demographic age has shifted, or there's just more
Well, for
room?
sure, because like my age demographic all has money now.
Yeah.
So it's like they're the ones that I think are kind of keeping it alive, that have grown up living, breathing, eating it, like watching snowboard videos, and now they have money, and I think that they're the ones keeping it alive. So, you know, the YouTube thing could help make it more obtainable from a core standpoint and building better content. It doesn't have to be shitty, cheesy TikTok videos. Like
Doesn't
you could
have
still
to be geared towards 14 to 20-year-olds.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's still like, I'm watching golf YouTube.
I'm watching the moto vlogs.
Every single one of them.
Yeah, same shit. Yeah.
But I mean, I think that that's a great example. Like Deegan has a YouTube show. And like they grind on that. I'm sure there's a team of people that work on that thing and make that thing happen, and they do it because it works.
And his line at the Nationals, like you got Tomac over here with a line that's like 1/5 the Deegan line.
Have you been watching Patrick Evans' YouTube channel?
No. Good?
Kind of like just started growing it in the past couple of months. You should check it out.
Ooh, okay. Nice plug.
Sorry, yeah.
Check it out. Patrick Evans on the electric bike. Okay, we got a guest question. I thought this was an interesting one. This one is from Chris Owens. Chris Owen.
Hey, Billy, this is Chris Owen. I was just thinking about the story of like you, Nathan Yant, and I sitting on top of a ridge in New Zealand watching Perrier, Bjorn, and Jamie all just rip a powder run. And you hit me in the arm and you said, this is the kind of shit you do when you win the lottery. Can you tell us more about like that story and how that whole trip came together?
Yeah, this is so. This was the budget that I went in and got grilled for with Woolie's dad, and we went to New Zealand, and it was just like massive heli budget, Methvin heli. We stayed on this farm. We had chartered the heli, so the heli literally parked at our cabin, like as close as it could possibly be, and the conditions couldn't have been any better. It was Bjorn, Terrier, and Jamie shredding. And I looked at Chris and I'm like, this is exactly what I'd be doing if I won the lottery. Where if anything and everything that you wanted in your life, like this is it happening right now. And we scored. Like the trip was insane with the alpenglow that you get in the evenings in Europe. Well, in New Zealand, you get that the morning of it is insane. I think it's even with the ocean and how it all. So we were flying out in the dark, and I remember like getting ready, and it was like being late for the school bus where the heli was winding up, and we were in the first load, and you're like throwing your boots on, like I'll just lace them out when I get out there when we're waiting for the second load, and you know that green flash that they talk about when you see the sun set? We saw it on the opposite way of the sun rising. And it was one of those moments where we were just like, it's still going. It's still going. Like someone get their phone out and take a picture. And just like so many magical moments on that trip that were insane. There was one where Terrier and Jamie were up on this big peak, and Terrier comes across the radio and he's like, yeah, we're going to need Billy up here. We're going to need someone on safety. And I'm like, dude, I do not want to ride down that. And they did not need like any sort of safety. It was just a full blown call out. Like, you're going to come up and rip this run. This is fucking sick.
Wow. How was it?
It was epic. I mean, it was actually pretty cool too, because I hadn't had the opportunity to shoot that kind of stuff and be in that environment.
Are you shooting 16 at this time?
Yeah.
Like you're filming, you're not just producing.
Like I was shooting second angle.
Okay.
Like I shot like mostly a Bolex with a wide angle, and then Yant was the lead cinematographer on it. But there was like a super heavy one for Jamie and I being close. Is that he had this line picked, and we it's like we had watched the Hatchet movies. He's been in the Hatchet movies, so we're all radioed up, and he drops in, and it. I don't want to call it an avalanche, but it's like a big slough, and it's overexposure. And I'm just like yelling in the radio. I'm like, hard toe, like stay left, hard toe, stay left, fight, left. Like I'm just like screaming at Jamie on the radio. the thing's just cascading around him and off this big cliff. And he gets across it, doesn't get left over, and just in that classic Jamie voice, he comes across the mics. He's like, "Thanks, brother." And you're just like, "Holy shit, man!" Like, I thought you were gonna die. And it was just like, "Thanks, brother."
You know, Billy, you're beloved. You have 11 guest questions, which is that a record, Silk?
I'm pretty sure it's a record. The most I remember is 8.
Yep.
Smashed it.
Yeah, you're fucking everybody up over here. Let's see. Do we want a Richards or a Troy Eckert?
Let's go Troy.
Troy's got a good one. Here we go.
What's up, Bill? Troy here. So my question for you is, during your Volcom years, all the years that you were close to the stone, what would you say would be your most fondest memory or experience? Right on, man. Love you.
It's got to be the garden. Like, there's no way around it. To be that young and kind of naive and just being part of it, of just like, what the fuck is happening? And to see the final product of what they made and to be able to be a part of it was so special.
Amazing.
I mean, there was just even things too where when we were filming, you could just see the intensity that Troy and Wooly were putting into every shot. You know, like shooting it on 8mm video and just like the cameras and how they held them. And there was just so much passion on so many levels that to be a part of it is awesome. And I'm like, out of everything that we've talked about, there's just so many moments. I think too, is that there's other times when you kind of know that it's happening. Like the New Zealand thing, you're like, this is happening right now. This is insane. At Volcom, you know, really not knowing what was happening at the garden. I mean, you knew it was special and your mind was blown, but not to the extent to look back at it now and go, wow, that was cool.
Mm-hmm. Those guys kind of wrote the formula. Or like, at least when you're making a scramble, you have the garden to look back on and something to like, I want to achieve this, make something like this. But what you guys did with the garden was kind of like a mad scientist, first experiment, extreme vision. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was so fucking cool.
And the pedigree too, obviously Scramble. We didn't really talk about 9191. Fucking masterpiece.
Yeah, Jake, unbelievable. It was.
And you were production on that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I produced it and hired Jake. Jake was on Morrow, so that's how we knew him. I'm a little disappointed his Instagram's not mini bike anymore.
Oh, 500 motors.
Yeah, he got all
Big
like
switch.
He got all artsy.
It's corporate now.
But yeah, working with those two, I mean, a ton of help. Justin Hosnick was insane to come together around someone like Giggy and put that together. The soundtrack with Baron was awesome. I mean, the kids, we had all the kids in in Hawaii for the edit. We edited the movie in the summertime, so we had the Volcom Pipe House to ourselves, putting the finishing touches on it. Everything was so special. I mean, Jamie, you know, contributing and writing songs and singing on the album was cool. Giggy's commitment, like the grind that he put in on that thing was insane.
Love it. We got a guest question, or why don't we hit one of those Patreon, that Johan Patreon could go, Silk. Fire that up. Also, thank you so much to our Patreon members that support this show. We couldn't do this without you guys, and we really appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you so much to all the Patreon members. Thank you, Johan, for asking a question and being an avid Patreon supporter. Johan says, it seemed as though you had the dream job while at Volcom. Then you moved to Burton, and that was short-lived. What was the motivation to leave the Stone to go to the East Coast?
Good question. Volcom was changing. It had been such an unbelievable ride. You know, it went public, sold to Kering. Exciting times, like cool things. It was happening. But, you know, Wooly had taken a different role. Troy had left. Our core group was changing. And also at that same time, through the heyday, I never felt like I was sitting at the kid table. I felt like Volcom was something that we were all in it together. And then I kind of felt like I wasn't sitting at the adult table, where it's like I had thoughts, I had passions. I would have really have loved to got the job that Troy vacated. They picked Imagart. Congratulations to him. But that changed, what my vision was and what Imagart's vision was different. The Burton opportunity came across the plate. So we fly to Vermont, do the job interview, gnarly, 8-hour-long interview.
Damn.
The entire day was the job interview at Burton. Met with every VP for an hour, and then we're done. We're back at the hotel, like fully smoked, and we have dinner with Jake and Donna that night. And this actually gets kind of funny. So we go out to Jake and Donna's house, beautiful Vermont evening, sitting on the porch. We're there for like 2 seconds, and they split us up. Like Donna takes Sarah, and Jake takes me into his like home office. And I thought we were just going to dinner. Boom, job interview again. And then Sarah gets kind of like almost a little job interview, like, can you move to Vermont? All this stuff. And so we managed that part of it. And we were sitting on the back patio, just like trying to calm down from the job interviews before we go to dinner. And then this hot air balloon crash lands in their backyard. Hot air balloons just like go wherever the fuck they're gonna go, right? So this thing's coming down on their private land. They're just like, get out of the way. And then the guy's like, catch us before we go into the bushes. So it's like I have a photo of Sarah and Jake like running after and like tackling this hot air balloon before it like eats shit into the back of their property. Oh my God. And so we're kind of laughing, and then that lightens the mood. And they're like, all right, cool. Like it's time to go to dinner. And I'm like, all right, cool. Vermont, farm to table. Sarah and I are super excited. And they're like, we're going to go have Mexican food. I'm like, fucking Mexican food? Like, we live in California, right? Like, we're good on Mexican food. So we always get a chuckle of that we went all the way to Vermont for Mexican food.
So the interview went well.
So the interview went well, and then I really enjoyed it. Like, the beginning was awesome. Like, connected with Jake.
And what was your title?
I was the senior brand director of marketing. So started there, super excited, had a great team around me, loved the job. Working with Jake was super cool. We kind of got into he was inviting you to go to hiking. So when you get to go hike with Jake, that's awesome. Early season, new guy at the company is like, we're going hiking. And I'm just like, fuck yeah, like going hiking. And we take off, and he's got his route, and the snow guns are just like grinding us. And so we have to take a longer route. And he's totally geared up, right? So we get 3/4 of the way up, headlamps come on, get to the top. What's the little shot that he does? Uber taller. I should know that one. You take your little shot and you shred down, and it's like me following Jake, spotlight in the dark with the headlamp, shredding down on Stowe, where it's like, all right, like I can get down with this. And I got super into the 100 days of just like Stowe opened early so I could get up, ride for 45 minutes to an hour, and still make it to work by 9:30. Lacey, who runs the show over there, was amazing. The product team, Evan Rose. I loved it. Like, and I really saw opportunity, but I like a specific way of working. There was some more politicking that was going on. I think that people really saw an opportunity for some land grabs. I think I got caught up in some of those politics. There was a time where I was subscribing to some of the bullshit, and then I was embarrassed, like why I was doing that, acting that way. So, I mean, there were some people there that were very self-serving. They know who they are. I don't got to name them by name. And it was disappointing because it was also at a time where Jake was sick and wasn't present, and Donna was doing her best to take care of him. and it just wasn't the right fit, and they let me go. And it was pretty radical because when they let me go, they said, "You're too focused on snowboarding, and we're trying to become more of an apparel brand." And I'm like, "It says Burton Snowboards on the door." And it was just like, I think I got caught up in more shit. I think if Jake would have been healthy, there wouldn't have been that. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty gnarly to make a commitment, make that decision, move your family across the country. Like, we were all in. I saw that the next phase of my career. And then two, when that comes to an end, where do you go next? You know, it was really difficult. I mean, I had some good times with Dave Lee. We did some really cool stuff at Signal. I wish we would have leaned more into the YouTube thing. I mean, they were crushing YouTube before it really was. But, you know, that was fun. But there was a trajectory where the whole industry was sliding backwards, and there really weren't that many jobs. So when you kind of find yourself out of the game, you're out of the game. And when that's your whole identity, it's just like, what do I do now? Like, I can't even get a job interview. So, you know, definitely some struggles there, but finding snowboarding with the family, where it's like, it came back to it where I wasn't working. I was doing some consulting. And we moved back to Mammoth just to like tighten everything up, and COVID happened, and it couldn't have been, I mean, it's a fucked up thing to say. We had a great COVID where it's like, we lived in Mammoth. We had the opportunity to get outside. We were snowboarding. I mean, you want to talk bringing it full circle. We took the kids to the garden. Like, I was like all nervous with the sleds. Like, we're like gassing the sleds up at night, so hoping no one could see you because you're not supposed to be doing anything. Mm-hmm. And we had 2 sleds, taking the whole family to Sonora and just riding like stump alley, like low angle pow turns, just lapping your kids. I mean, I kind of look back at it now and go like, I mean, you've been to Sonora, it's deep. It's not just like off the side of the road.
Yeah.
And, you know, those led unfortunate things at Burton. I learned a ton, you know, where you work in one system at a company for a long time. People have different systems. You got to get on board. You got to learn how to work with people. And so I take a lot of good things, a ton of respect for Jake. I mean, some of my earliest, you know, memories, I got to do Trans World Industry Conference with Wooly. The 2 of us went, and it was in Alyeska, and Craig won the Legend Award that year. So we were heli skiing, and we were splitting the heli with them, where Jake and Craig were in one load, and Wooly and I were in the next load. So we were stopping and having lunch, and we roll up on this thing, and I'm sitting, you know, shotgun second seat or just in the back behind the guide. And the guy in the other one's just like, "Hey, Craig's going to go first on this one. Will you guys just keep eyes on him?" So they just bust a 90 degrees so the guy can see. Craig drops in, launches a huge method into this thing, and does, you know, 8 of the most perfect pow turns you've ever seen. Watching that live, you're like, all right, this is like working out pretty good. Like, I'm watching a standard movie, like courtside. So, my run within the industry has been awesome. Like, so thankful, so many layers to it, so many great people. I do wish things would have worked out differently at Burton. I think I had a lot to give there. I think it's an amazing company. I love that it's still private. I do think that they need a snowboard leader. I mean, I would love to see, you know, Danny Davis move to Vermont and just be a decision maker, like hold round tables, like make snowboarding first again. You know, I think Danny would be perfect for it. I think his commitment to the sport, how many aspects he's participated in. But I mean, maybe it's the next generation who we don't know yet, you know. like a Red, a Brock. There's just so many kids that you need younger decision makers. If you could put more 20-year-olds in decision-making spots, I think our industry would be in a better place. Like they move quick, they're confident, and I mean, it's just like a Elon Musk thing, like fail fast. Kids fail fast. Like you fuck up, you get going again. You get older, you start overthinking it, and shit just drags on. I think it just needs to get young again.
Okay, we have a guest question from Super Agent, Mr. Ryan Runke. Here we go.
Billy, what's up? What's up, Bombhole? Question for you. You've obviously spent your entire life deep in snowboarding, from a pro to numerous jobs in the industry, et cetera, et cetera. But in the last year and a half or so, you've kind of switched passions / industries and gotten into golf. Why don't you just tell us about that transition and what made you go there and how it's going so far? Thanks, guys.
I mean, the transition to golf. So I did a little stint in aftermarket wheels, which was like a crazy industry, completely different culture. I wanted to get back to sports marketing. Family, friends, Chris Rizawson had started a brand called Extracurricular. We were spending time with them through the ends of COVID. Chris's story was awesome. He started a brand called Rizawson. Had sold that, came in at Travis Matthews as one of the founders there through a heyday of golf, built an amazing thing. He took some time off, had a non-compete, traveled the world, spent time with his family, and, wasn't ready to retire full-time, wanted to build a brand. We were spending time socially, and I think it was Christmas or something. We had Christmas or Thanksgiving. We had drinks and had a ton of fun, and was just like, hey, if you ever need help, like, I'd love to get back into sports. And we ended up like staying in contact, and there was an opportunity for it. Getting back into golf, being outside, low impact, not as demanding on the body from a risk standpoint. So that was a little bit of fun. My daughter showed interest in playing golf. She was playing golf on the high school team, so something to spend time with them. And it's starting to take off. I really enjoy golf. I love the challenge of it. Pushing yourself. It kind of goes back to the snowboarding of a little bit of drive, some commitment, wanting more, grinding it out a little bit. I was laughing about it with Runke because you can play 8 holes of really good golf, and on the 9th hole, just fucking be pissed. Like you want to break a club, you want to throw something. And I don't really remember being like 9 runs deep into a day and getting so mad because I had a bad run. And I've played a couple times without keeping score recently, and golf is awesome. Like almost like on the snowboard level, you take mulligans all the time. And it's just like, I didn't hit another one, just drop another one. And there's different cultures in golf that I'm enjoying, that you have the PGA, which is long and established. You have Live coming in that's like shaking up that whole model and bringing new energy, targeting audiences, a different audience. The YouTube thing that we talked about is insane. What's happening with streetwear is cool. Golf is more obtainable than it's ever been. People are comfortable like going to the Muni with their shirt untucked. So I'm really enjoying the golf space. It's new and challenging. I don't know everyone, which is interesting. I love creating content from a snowboard eye when you're thinking about authenticity, where it's just like, let's just shoot golf. And it's come through in the shoots. It's partnering. We're working with this guy, Nick Walker, who's an amazing photographer that isn't bossing anyone around. He's just really documenting what's happening. We had Ika on a shoot and Simnewski on a shoot, which was awesome. And I'm really enjoying it. It's like good to shift gears. It's also a startup, right? So one day we're working on strategy and really high level stuff that I'm passionate about. And in the next day it's grinding out promo boxes where you're like literally writing promo orders and packing stuff up and shipping it out. So I like wearing the hats and being part of building something. When you just get into a marketing role, you kind of get to a corporate level where people just want to be CMOs. And they want to be a CMO at a bigger company and get paid more. And that's their goal. And that's just not something that I'm interested in. I like building something. I like being part of a team. And right now at extracurricular, that's a great spot for it.
Very cool. Do you ever see yourself coming back into the snowboard industry? Would you entertain that idea at all, or is it?
I mean,
past.
You never say never.
Yeah.
Like I think we talked about it. I kind of came here thinking that this was like a little bit of culture, and it's just like it's so ingrained in my way of thought. I love it. I love going with my family, the friends.
Though it is probably nice to take a step away, work on something else.
Totally. I think that you find a love for it in every transition, right? Where when you're a pro snowboarder, and you get to that point where it becomes a grind and it's work and you're not confident, you lose the love for it. And I kind of thought that it was it and I was just going to get a job. And then I started working at Volcom and I love snowboarding again. I was riding for different reasons. Like pro snowboarders don't snowboard that much, you know? And it gets to the point where, all right, cool, I could still hit something when I wanted to. And there was like a moment where it's like, all right, just make sure you hit all the big jumps this year. All right, cool, you can still do it. And then you're like, I don't want to hit the big jumps anymore. And it doesn't matter, you know? And I think leaving the industry was like really tough and difficult, but your family becomes involved of it and you have a different perspective. And I think if I have anything to offer the industry now, it's perspective from so many angles. You know, there was the peak of it where we were growing 40%, and then there's the grind of cutting budgets and trying to maximize it, and who do you work with? So, and then who are you marketing to, right? I mean, at Volcom, it was so core. I can't believe like that's the only people that we were talking to, you know? And it seems like who we were talking to, 50% of those people were getting product for free, you know? And having perspective and seeing what's happening within the industry and what the skiers are doing with Altera and Vail Resorts, like that's changed the game a lot. How do you create messages that resonate with people? I think that was one of the disappointing things at Burton is that the day that I got let go, I had just gotten off the phone with Dave Downing, and what we were putting together for Step On was insane. Like, it is not for a 20-year-old kid that's riding the park. And why you'd ever want that person to do that, it's like they're young, they're limber, they got no problem bending over and putting their bindings on. Me, at 47, I don't want to bend over and put my bindings on. Like, I want to step into it. And we saw that as a whole opportunity where that age demographic is probably the biggest demographic in snowboarding, right? Where like that whole demo that was watching all the snowboard videos in their, you know, early 20s is all now in their 40s and they're still snowboarding. And Step On is a great product for them. And we had brainstormed that. And it was just like, I was so ready where I was all in on it because I had done the Step In thing with Morrow and what Jake had put into the product and seeing it come to life and testing it. And I still ride it, you know, and I've done really well at bank slaloms and people are like, you ride Step On? I'm like, fuck yeah, I ride Step On. And, oh, what about like in the powder? I'm like, your bindings get clogged whether you have Step-Ons or not. I actually like it because I'm way faster off the lift where it's like, so seeing, you know, different demographics in snowboarding, how you market to them and telling authentic stories across that, it's so wide now. And then that gets really tough too because you have smaller budgets. So it can be really difficult because you want to tell so many stories and then your stories get diluted, you know? So but that kind of comes back to the youth where it's like, they're just like, oh no, fucking, I'm right, this is it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope we see a Billy Anderson return.
Yeah.
Just through this conversation, there's so much unique perspective and insight from your time. You were so deeply involved and then being removed, but always being a snowboarder at heart and paying attention. I hope we see a return someday because I think it's super valuable to our community.
Never say never, right?
Yeah.
Also, you may view yourself as Billy that works at a golf company now.
I don't.
But we all are like, what are you talking about? You're Billy the snowboarder. It's like I'm hearing you say that. I'm like, what the fuck's this guy talking about?
That's just his job.
Yeah. That's your job. Also, the extracurricular stuff's nice. Thank you for the promo package.
You're very welcome.
Stuff's gear.
I mean, it's not going anywhere. Snowboarding's too fun. And we'll do it for the rest of our lives. I think that's something what's really cool with Jeffrey and Spencer. It's a life skill. And I think that's what I also like about golf. It's a life skill. You learn those things when you're young. You will do it forever. And the participation sports where, I mean, even moto, it's a participation sports. The people that watch moto ride moto. I mean, I'm sure there's a small group that are into it, but it's not Formula One. It's not football. It's not basketball. Participation sports, I think, are where it's at. It's just like getting outside. There's so much bullshit to capture like your attention and waste so much time to get outside and live is important.
Okay, we're going to get into some Patreon questions. This Patreon question is brought to you by Nidaker Snowboards and Craig McMorris. Let's tee it up, Craig.
Howdy, everyone. Craig McMorris back here with Nidaker Snowboards. We are talking about boots, and we're giving boots away. The boot in my hand, Rift APX, KPU shell. This thing does not break out. It feels new longer. Superior foam density, pardon me. So, you know, your old boots, they pack out. These do not, okay? I love this boot. This is the boot I ride. Now, we get to pick a Patreon question, read it on air, and give that person a pair of boots. So congratulations, Old Man Winter 8. Your question is read. I would love to hear more about riding for Morrow back in the day, being part of the insanely talented team and the boards and binding tech that was light years ahead of all the other companies. So, Mr. Anderson, excited to hear your answer.
Yeah, I mean, Morrow was awesome. The factory in Salem. I mean, I think it goes back to another mad scientist, Rob Morrow, just what he was doing. They were catching a lot of shit for the foam cores, but what they were doing with carbon fiber rods and so much stiff or like board flex modification and management was insane. I mean, I think too, just like Rob's influence on me, like being one of the first people that I ever saw carve a snowboard, having respect for people that can turn. Dirksen and I had a blast together. With like similar riding styles, attention to detail on turning, and just having a lot of fun there. I think the TR stuff was always fun because I loved riding half pipe, but I was never some massive trick guy. And we just like talked so much shit. I mean, the wet cat, like that back 900 was me more talking shit to Todd than like actually trying to like name a trick. It was just like,
did you coin the wet cat?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm like, Todd, you look like a fucking wet cat when you do that. And it stuck. So, and there was just like so many good times. The photo shoots and working with Trevor Graves and Embry Rucker and Shem and all those guys. It was just an entry because it was just so different than Volcom. You know, Volcom was like so fast and so just Volcom. And Morrow was like very technical and the product was very serious. And I think that's when the step-ins came across, it was just like, hey, if Rob believes in this, I believe in this. And then I wore it and I thought it performed well and I thought it tweaked well. And I mean, there was at times where I was racing on it at the Baker Bank Slalom in my prime and doing well on it, and no one even knew. And no one would have rode clicker or anything like that. So being part of that, there was just such a team environment too. I think when you talk about being a team manager and getting compliments on that, it's like I learned from two of the best, Twitty and Owen, were great team managers. I mean, Owen did leave me at Milano's one time, and Baker and I had to walk home in the rain, so that was fucking awesome. But besides that, Owen was a great team manager.
And all this talk about turning, everybody that we talk to mentions that how eloquent your turns are in navigating terrain and your ability to go fast, turn your snowboard well, and you talk about the importance of turning. I'm going to put you on the spot here. Mount Rushmore, top 4 turning people in snowboarding.
Like a hot take kind of style of just like
take.
going fast and not overdoing it. I mean, Dirkson's unbelievable. Curtis is insane. And then like Curtis's toe pow turn is insane. Terrier's edge control is on another level. I think sometimes that stuff's overlooked. We talked about it a little bit over breakfast where I would love to see a slope style that went across the hill. So you had to like rip a mean toe turn to keep your speed and the same on your heel to clear the jumps. So yeah.
So with everything going airbags, like kids in the summer nowadays, they go to basically a bag and they chuck on bristles into a bag instead of kids will go to airbags instead of Mount Hood now. Do you have a take on that?
I mean, it sucks. But it's also progression. Progression changes a lot of things, like the dynamic to progress and what progression's a necessity. If you're not going forward, you're going backwards. So I think it's sad, but it's not the only aspect of snowboarding. There's still kids that are grinding rails and breaking their ribs and wearing that badge of honor of like, this is what I do. And when we kind of talked about it, it'd be nice to see a better pipeline of progression for kids. So it's just like maybe temperament it a little bit where it's just like, hey, at the younger level, they don't have to be doing this, or just the jumps are smaller. It's like you can only spin so much and the jumps got to get bigger and more dangerous. And, but I mean, I hate putting limitations on it. But then also you can just go snowboarding and it's so fun.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more to do it socially where it becomes a life sport, like we were kind of talking about a minute ago, where you will snowboard with your kids. You'll snowboard with your kids. It's something that you can do forever. I mean, when I think about Baldface and Paula's dad at 70 years old with Spencer that's 7, there's not a lot of things where those are the possibilities. And finding new ways to create community and ride days where there's a lot of progression that could still happen within the sport that doesn't have to be another 180 or a bigger jump. It's like, how do we celebrate each other more? How do we snowboard more? I think when it comes back to it, there's so much like work from home, making it more affordable to like snowboard during the week. Like, how do you spread out those crowds? Like, how do you have events midweek where it's family based or ski PE programs? I think that there's enough possibilities, and that we're smart enough. If you think about it, you can figure it all out. And it doesn't. It's really easy to come to the airbag and just go like, "What the fuck are they doing?" And it's just like, hey, for that niche of snowboarding, it's like the Olympics. The Olympics is crazy to me that you're going to dedicate your entire life to one event that happens every 4 years. I remember taking Spencer to gymnastics when she's like a little girl, and it's just like Olympic champion, Olympic dream. And I'm like, wait, you're just telling, like the opportunity for success is just so small, where it's like there's other things. It's like just learning about your body and tumbling and having fun and being a kid that chase for a gold medal or winning. There's just so much more to it. It's like the culture, the friendship. I mean, those sessions where it's like when I'm racing with the snowboard dads, it's like there's a ton of risk. Like dudes are hauling ass, pushing the limits, but it doesn't have to be other things. I mean, I do like the risk of snowboarding and taking yourself out of your comfort zone and finding more ways to celebrate that. they're all out there. You just got to think about it. I mean, it's like peanut butter rail jam. How do we just do this differently? Put the rails side together, like make a rail that everyone can hit. It's not rocket scientists, or it's not rocket science. You just got to put the time in to make the ideas and involve it. You know, it's just like, look at the little tweaks that you put on Bomb Hole Cup. Like, this shit's hilarious. There's people laughing and having a good time, and it's not a 70-foot kicker where people are doing 14s.
Totally. Yeah, I love that perspective. You know, it's an interesting thing to think about. Like, if you think about, like, Blum and I are recreationally race dirt bikes, and there's A class, there's B class, there's C class, there's D class, where you can compete against people with your own ability level. If there was only A class, I wouldn't be racing.
No.
And so, you know, it's like in snowboarding, there's basically just your age group, and you're going to be in with the A class kids. So, I mean, something to think about too, that would help people, you know, foster their ability levels and bolster their love for snowboarding, is if like there is a B class, or, you know, like even in other sports, there's the junior varsity and the varsity, and they're competing against and I think, like you're saying too, just kind of thinking about it on a broader scale, the competitive landscape coming in too, having only an A class probably turns a lot of people away, and that's okay because there's a lot of other avenues like you mentioned, but it's just fun to talk about.
I think there's a club aspect to it, where it's like snowboard club. I think there's something in that of just building. I remember in the 80s being a kid in Mammoth, and where that paid parking section is at the front of the lodge, that used to all be buses, like ski groups from LA, and like hundreds of them, it feels like, and that drove it. It's just like everyone got on the bus. I mean, you stay in some of those old rooms at the Mammoth Mountain Inn. They're built for like 30 people in like one room. And you think about that in the 70s and 80s, like all of those people were snowboarders. I kind of laugh about it because, you know, the ski industry came into these small fishing towns, and they were rebels. They were showing up in jeans, they were partying, and these little quaint mountain towns hated them. And then the sport like grew into something, and then the snowboarders showed up, and then it was like everyone hated the snowboarders. And then, you know, snowboarding invents free skiing, and it's just like there's these opportunities. It's that pendulum that keeps going, where skiing's had its moments, right? Peaks and valleys. Snowboarding has its peaks and valleys. Those have seemed to come together to support each other, and there's going to be peaks and valleys in that. So I think time will tell. There's a ton of opportunity. It's too much fun not to find a way, right?
Yep. Well said, Billy. Like everything you've said this entire goddamn show. Well said. All right, let's get into hot takes. I probably should have prepped you for this, but we're going to just get right into it. Your greatest of all time, in your heart, both male and female.
I mean, my brother, he was just like such a no-brainer. Female, greatest of all time. I'm going to go, well, can I give my prediction of greatest of all time?
Sure.
She's not quite there yet, but Elena Height.
Woo.
I think she's on a path. She's
Love
fucking
that.
awesome.
Yeah. Insane half-pipe career, now destroying Big Mountain.
And not done.
Yep.
It was actually pretty cool. She was in Laguna. They had a little film festival there, and she took the time and came over to the house, and it was just so nice to sit with someone like that and have genuine conversation and just hear about her path and what's going on with her life and how she's picking it, because she was so young and a lot of people were dictating her path. And for her to find this whole new avenue and reinvent herself and what she's doing, I don't know if she's greatest of all time yet, but I think she's on the path to be it. I hope she is.
All right, snowboarding, art form or sport?
Art form.
Okay. In your opinion, who's one of the most underrated?
Underrated? I think that we do a pretty good job of representing heartstrings like Jamil was awesome. I wish we could have seen more of what he brought to snowboarding. There was that whole crew of the Alliance guys of Summers, Jamil, Spiro. My brother was a part of it, like what they were doing. And, when those things happened with Jamil, I think it was tough for all of them to bounce back from that. But, I mean, I would almost even say that crew was insanely good.
Mm-hmm. Good call. Doesn't get talked about enough on here, at least. Steel or powder?
Powder.
Stupid question for Billy. I don't even know I asked it. Who's got your favorite style ever?
Jamie.
Who's your favorite person to snowboard with?
My brother. Well, my family, brother included.
Who's got your favorite method?
Brother.
What's your favorite video ever made?
The Garden.
What's your favorite board graphic ever?
My brother's first graphic.
What is your dream sponsor? Anything in the world. Doesn't have to be snowboard related.
I got everything I need.
Not gonna throw, but I love that. I love that you're content. I love that you're content.
Well, what am I? I mean, I was gonna say like a car sponsor, like I don't know, a yacht sponsor.
I think I got everything I need. The dopest answer actually ever. Let's leave it at that. But you might regret that later. Like, fuck, I could have got TaylorMade. If you could go heliboarding 3 people, just good times, riding POW, no camera. Who's going in the heli?
My 2 daughters and my brother.
Boom. Okay, last one. Worst trend.
Worst trend? I'm not like so like up on the trends, but I think we just need more youth working in the industry. I don't know if that's a trend, but we need younger decision makers.
Fucking great take. Also, like a fresh take, hot take. Fantastic
Great take.
Yep. Okay, a couple more things, Billy. What is your current snowboard setup? What are you riding?
I made a handful of wheelboards during COVID, and I got the secret reserve stash of those. So those will take me on into a long time. I do ride step-on. I love the system. I think that there's something cool about not having straps on the top of your feet. I tighten my boots to a comfortable spot when I leave the house, and I don't touch them until I come home. So that's the setup.
Beautiful. Okay. What's next for Billy Anderson?
Excited to work on building a golf brand, spending time with my family, snowboarding, playing golf, traveling, living.
Perfect. And lastly, do you want to throw any thank yous out before we wrap this thing up?
I mean, it's a laundry list. Like I kind of said, you know who you are, but Sarah, my wife, and Spencer and Jeffrey. So thank you guys for the support.
Money. I love that. Billy, thank you for coming and sharing your story with us. That was an awesome podcast. Would you say, Scott?
That was amazing.
Did you have fun?
I had so much fun. I'm hyped to be a part of it. Honored to be here.
Silk, did you have fun?
Oh, yeah. Good time. Learned a lot.
Well, we appreciate it once again. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you to our Patreon members, all of our sponsors, everybody that tunes in. Scott, do you want to take us out of the show?
How do I do that? We're out of here?
Just say, use your own words. Use your own words to take us out. Thanks for listening.
Well, hey, Chris, thank you for having me. Blum, thank you for coming out.
Thank you guys.
This was definitely a welcome environment. I was definitely more when you called me. I think I was the most nervous. Last night didn't sleep super well, and then by the time we got here to the studio, I was like, all right, this is it. So very welcome environment. I appreciate you guys for having me on.
Cool.
Right on. That's a wrap. We'll see you guys next week. Episode 199 coming up.
Thanks for listening, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah. Woo! What a fun show. Pretty good sign off. Not the best.
Well, dude, what the fuck? I'm not a podcaster.